Chapter 548. The warm sun shone on the earth, and the gentle sea breeze brought a cool aura. In front of the everlasting feast hall's parking lot, 50 experts stood neatly on the edge of the parking lot with solemn expressions, quietly waiting for Tan Xiu's order. Dressed in a white dress, Gu Xiaoxue stood beside Ji Qimei with a bit of regret in her eyes. Xiaoxue, Ji Qimei needs to go with me. Light and dark have also left, so you can only stay here. We'll come back after we've dealt with the threat on Resting Cemetery Island. When the time comes, I'll leave the matter of raising fierce beasts in captivity to you, said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. Don't worry. Gu Xiaoxue gently nodded. I'll protect Master's safety. Tan Xiu nodded in response. His eyes then fell on the barefooted old man with long hair draped over his shoulders in the distance. He looked like he was taking a leisurely stroll, yet his speed was very fast, almost comparable to the extreme running speed of ordinary people. In just a few seconds, the barefooted old man had already stood in front of them with a smile. Daoist Tang, thank you. The barefooted old man clenched his fists and bowed to Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu faintly smiled and raised his hands. 2 streams of qi instantly supported the barefooted old man's arms. As he straightened his waist, he lightly smiled and said, You're welcome. May I know how to address you, senior? Daoist Tang can call me Daoist Su Yang, said the barefooted old man with a smile. Daoist Su Yang, are you here to accept my challenge? Tan Xiu nodded. Although I'm well aware that finding an evenly matched opponent is a happy event worthy of celebration, my cultivation has skyrocketed recently. I'm afraid that Daoist Tang. The barefooted old man shook his head and smilingly said. Ji, who stood behind Tan Xiu, coldly snorted. A monstrous aura rushed toward Daoist Su Yang and enveloped him in a fraction of a second. What? Daoist Su Yang's body turned stiff and a horrified expression burst out from his eyes. After his eyes fell on Ji Qim, a fear and madness that came from the bottom of his heart grew inside him. Even though that monstrous aura had only flashed for a moment, his entire body felt cold. Ever since Daoist Su Yang broke through, he found that the world in front of him was completely different from before. The advancement of a great realm filled his heart with confidence. Even if he encountered that person from the northeast, he felt that he could compete with him. But who was this old woman in front of him? Daoist Su Yang could clearly feel the aura she released. If this old woman wanted to kill him, just the aura she released would be enough to obliterate him. It felt as if he was just a drop of water, and the old woman in front of him was a vast ocean. Xu Yang greets senior. Beads of sweat appeared on Daoist Su Yang's forehead as he bowed in fear. Tan Xiu slightly furrowed his brows. He turned to look at Ji Qimei with a displeased expression and lightly said, All right. There are too many people who judge a book by its cover. It's normal for him to have such thoughts. You don't need to scare him. Ji Qimei hurriedly nodded. Even though Tan Xiu's current cultivation was far from hers, Tan Xiu's once proud and arrogant figure that stood above the myriad of races had long been deeply imprinted in the depths of her soul. Therefore, she respected Tan Xiu and was also afraid of Tan Xiu. Daoist Su Yang was dumbfounded. He looked up at the respectful Ji Qimei and then at the displeased Tan Xiu. His lips squirmed a few times, but he didn't know what to say. He found it hard to believe that a terrifying powerhouse that he had to look up to was actually so submissive and respectful in front of Tan Xiu. Did he really judge a book by its cover? Could it be that Tan Xiu's cultivation was more powerful than this terrifying powerhouse? Tan Xiu looked at Daoist Su Yang and said, Since you don't want to accept my challenge, then I won't force you. Now that you've thanked me, you can go back if there's nothing else. Daoist Tang, there's actually something I want to discuss with you this time, said Daoist Su Yang quickly. Say it. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, Thanks to your guidance, my state of mind has had a breakthrough and my cultivation has advanced by leaps and bounds, said Daoist Su Yang. Therefore, I plan to go to the northeast to challenge that Amur tiger. If Daoist Tang has time, can you come with me? I haven't had the time to ask you before, said Tan Xiu in surprise. Who exactly is this Amur tiger you mentioned? Is he a very powerful cultivator? That's right. He's indeed a powerful cultivator, said Taoist Su Yang. Decades ago, his cultivation was almost the same as mine. Rumors have it that his strength has made a breakthrough in recent years. Therefore, I want to compare notes with him to measure the extent of my strength. When will you go? Asked Tan Xiu after pondering for a moment. I can go anytime. It depends on your arrangement, said Taoist Su Yang. Tan Xiu thought for a moment and then said, I need to go to the sea to handle something. If you have time, you might as well come with me to play. We can set off immediately after we've dealt with the matter there. Alright. Taoist Su Yang directly agreed. Although he didn't know what Tan Xiu wanted to do in the sea, he could see that these people were obviously experts who had stepped into the cultivation world, and there was also a terrifying existence like Ji Qime. He believed that they must have a very important purpose. Get in the car. Tan Xiu called out and quickly entered the car parked at the side. 20 black cars slowly left the everlasting feast hall. After arriving at the port, they boarded the previous liner and rushed toward Clam Island and Resting Cemetery Island. In the evening, the liner docked at the northern section of Resting Cemetery Island. Following Tan Xiu's order, only 2 people were left on the liner, while the rest boarded the island. 10 people to form a group of 5. Try to capture the fierce beasts on the island alive and immediately send them to the center of the island. I'll be waiting for you there. After Tan Xiu issued the order, he, Ji Qime, Taoist Su Yang, and the other 8 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall rushed toward the center of Resting Cemetery Island. The 8 experts carried a lot of things, which were the materials that Tan Xiu prepared to arrange a feng shui array. After arriving at the center of the island, Tan Xiu looked at Ji Qime and asked, Shall I arrange the array, or will you do it? What kind of array do you want to arrange, Venerable Lord? Ji Qime respectfully asked. Consolidated metal array, spirit amassing array, and myriad killing sword array, Tan Xiu said. The spirit amassing array needs to be arranged with 36 layers of interlocking superimposed arrays. At the very least, the heaven and earth spiritual qi within a radius of hundreds of kilometers must be extracted to maintain the spiritual qi concentration on the island. Leave this trivial matter to this subordinate, Venerable Lord, Ji Qime said. Go. Tan Xiu nodded. After the array is arranged properly, we'll tame all the fierce beasts on the island. Understood. Ji Qime waved her hand and all the array materials in the hands of the 8 big men floated up. Along with her figure soaring into the sky, she instantly stood 100 meters above the island. Taoist Su Yang's complexion greatly changed and his pupils violently shrunk. After a moment of silence, he also soared into the sky and appeared far away from Ji Qime, ready to see how she would arrange the array. As a matter of fact, he also knew how to arrange feng shui arrays, such as the Hero's Crest martial school he had created a long time ago. In fact, he had arranged a feng shui array under the Hero's Crest martial school. Although the power of the array was very small and could only increase his speed and gather weak spiritual qi once it was activated, it was already the limit of what he could do. Among the 3 arrays Tan Xiu had just mentioned, apart from the spirit amassing array, he had never heard of the other 2 arrays. Ji Qime naturally saw Taoist Su Yang, but she didn't have the mood to pay attention to him. She was an immortal. Although she was very ordinary in the immortal world and her strength had fallen a lot, Taoist Su Yang's shallow cultivation was simply like an ant in her eyes. After observing the resting cemetery island for a few moments, Ji Qime's arms constantly waved as the materials in the bags flew in all directions. In just half a minute, all the materials had been deeply inserted into the island's underground. At the same time, her other hand constantly formed a rune seal. Array rise. From the beginning to the end, it didn't take more than 3 minutes for Ji Qime to raise her arms and shout. Buzz? In the dark, a special aura fluctuation rose on the resting cemetery island. In the distance, Taoist Su Yang was dumbfounded as he looked at the changes on the island. He was shocked to find that the entire resting cemetery island had unexpectedly disappeared into thin air in front of him. What made him even more shocked was that the surrounding heaven and earth spiritual energy was rushing towards the resting cemetery island like a tide. He tried to absorb the surrounding heaven and earth spiritual energy, but to his horror, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't even absorb a trace of the heaven and earth spiritual energy into his body. How is this possible? Ji Qimei flashed and appeared at Taoist Su Yang's side. Her skinny hands grabbed Taoist Su Yang's shoulders as she stood in front of Tan Xiu the next moment. Venerable Lord, the array has been arranged. Ji Qimei released Taoist Su Yang and respectfully looked at Tan Xiu. Tang Xiu nodded and praised, "That's right. It's much easier and faster than me arranging the array too. Go. Follow them to the south of the island. There are a lot of fierce beasts there. Catch all of them and bring them to the island." Understood. Ji Qimei replied and quickly left with the 8 big men. Tan Xiu turned his head to look at the shocked Taoist Su Yang and lightly said, "Don't always make a fuss over nothing. Your cultivation is too low and you can't do many things. But don't worry and cultivate well. You'll be able to do these things when your cultivation improves in the future." Taoist Su Yang's mouth twitched as he bitterly said, "Taoist Tang, this subordinate of yours, who exactly is she? She's too terrifying. I have a feeling that if she wants to, she can unleash her strongest attack and destroy most of the territory of our country. Sorry, I'm attending a friend's wedding today, so the update time was delayed." Chapter 549. Destroying most of China's territory? Tan Xiu sneered. "You're really a frog in a well. She can blow up the entire earth if she wants to. You've been trapped here for too long and haven't seen the strength of those real powerhouses. Forget it. You won't understand it even if I tell you now. Just cultivate well later. If your aptitude is good, you may be able to take that step in the future if you get some opportunities." "How is that possible?" Taoist Su Yang exclaimed. "An existence that can blow up the entire earth in one blow is at least an immortal who has ascended to heaven, right? The spiritual veins on earth have dried up and the spiritual energy here is thin. Let alone immortals, there are no nascent soul powerhouses here, no? Then what level do you think her cultivation has reached?" asked Tan Xiu lightly. Taoist Su Yang hesitated for a moment and asked in a low voice, "Surpassing the nascent soul stage? Has she reached the spirit formation stage?" Spirit formation stage? A bit of mockery was revealed in Tan Xiu's eyes. He learned from Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingzhu that the cultivation stages of Earth's cultivators were divided into Qi refining stage, foundation establishment stage, golden core stage, nascent soul stage, spirit formation stage, body integration stage, great ascension stage, and crossing tribulation stage. Each stage was divided into 4 stages: beginner, middle, advanced, and peak. Although the experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall had true Qi foundation, the strongest among them was only at the peak Qi refining stage. Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingzhu were almost at the peak foundation establishment stage. As for Gu Xiaoxue, light, and dark, they had broken through to the golden core stage. Even the deadline for Gu Xiaoxue to break through to the golden core stage was only a few days ago. However, Tan Xiu couldn't deny that Taoist Su Yang was a very powerful existence among the cultivators on Earth. He had reached the mid-stage golden core stage, and even light and dark could only be on par with him. "Let's go. Since you're here, help me clean up the fierce beasts on this island. I'm going to rear fierce beasts here in the future. If I can't completely destroy their wild nature, it will be very troublesome to rear them." Taoist Su Yang was surprised. "You want to rear fierce beasts on this island?" "That's right," said Tan Xiu. "In my opinion, these fierce beasts are good materials for cultivation. If I can educate a few of them, I might be able to get a few good mounts in the future." Cough, cough. Even if Taoist Su Yang had a firm Tao heart, he still choked on Tan Xiu's words. How much ability did one have to be able to successfully educate a wild beast? Furthermore, he wanted to get a few as mounts? Suddenly, he realized that his vision over 100 years was really very, very small. Tan Xiu's actions, as well as the powerhouse named Ji Qimei, were things that he had never dared to imagine before. In fact, he had only been in contact with Tan Xiu for a short period of time, but he found that he seemed to have entered a whole new realm, A new world full of magnificence and mystery. Fellow Taoist Tang, your cultivation base. Taoist Su Yang couldn't help but ask. To be honest, I don't know exactly how strong I am now, said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. This is also the reason why I want to compare notes with you. If I can defeat you, it means that my strength can be compared to a golden core stage expert. Taoist Su Yang stared blankly and asked in horror, You can see my cultivation base? Tan Xiu glanced at him and then rushed toward the distance. Two mid-level fierce beasts were wandering around the island. The moment the geomancy was formed, they found that the island seemed to be different from before. Just as they were confused about the situation, they suddenly saw a figure rushing over. The two fierce beasts suddenly looked like they were facing a formidable enemy as their eyes firmly locked on Tan Xiu's body. Tan Xiu's speed was extremely fast. The moment he punched, two surging airflows erupted and bombarded the fierce beast's head. It could be said that he went all out in this punch, but it still only made the fierce beast retreat a few steps, raising its head and howling in pain. Roar! The other fierce beast stepped on a fireball and soared into the air the moment the fireball rose and pounced toward Tan Xiu. Its sharp claws extended more than 10 centimeters and were also covered in flames as it attempted to directly scratch Tan Xiu to death. Good material. Tan Xiu's eyes lit up and the sharp dagger instantly appeared in his hand. His figure flashed and the sharp dagger cut off the four claws of the fierce beast and then quickly put it into his interspatial ring. The two fierce beasts were in a disadvantageous position as soon as they came into contact with Tan Xiu, causing fear to appear in their eyes. Almost without hesitation, they turned around and dashed toward the distance. Want to escape? A sneer appeared on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth. His speed was a bit faster than the two fierce beasts. He blocked their path and constantly bombarded the two fierce beasts with his fists that were as fast as a storm. After Taoist Su Yang arrived, he happened to see the scene of Tan Xiu beating the two fierce beasts. His mouth twitched a few times when he saw Tan Xiu's fierce momentum. It must be noted that cultivators had long since stopped using fists and kicks to attack. A few simple spells could generally solve all problems. Is he really a cultivator? The thought arose in Taoist Su Yang's mind, but he immediately shook his head with a wry smile. He then looked at Tan Xiu and called out, Taoist Tang, you can just use spells to trample them. We may have good physiques, but punching and kicking are too exhausting. Tan Xiu violently punched and kicked hundreds of times in one breath, beating the two fierce beasts to the brink of death. Only then did he stop and turn to look at Taoist Su Yang. After observing him for a while, he said, Your cultivation is indeed good, so it's normal for you to use spells. But I can tell you that I'm not necessarily stronger than you if we were to compare notes. But if we are enemies, I'm 80% sure that I can kill you if we fight to the death. After saying that, he pondered for a moment and continued, I'll give you a gift after we go back. Taoist Su Yang didn't believe Tan Xiu's words, but he was still confused and asked, What gift? A membership card for the best gym in Jingmen Island, said Tan Xiu calmly. Gym? Membership card? Taoist Su Yang was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. You must be joking, Taoist Tang. I'm afraid no gym in the world is suitable for me given my strength, no? I told you that you're a frog in a well, but I didn't expect your knowledge to be so shallow, said Tan Xiu lightly. As a cultivator, do you think that as long as you have a high cultivation and a strong state of mind, you're already perfect? You're gravely mistaken. Cultivators are very strong, but there's another cultivation system in the world, and that's body cultivation. Everyone's body is their foundation. If their physique is not strong enough, they will know how miserable their fate will be when they cross the tribulation in the future. Once upon a time, Tan Xiu also believed that as long as a cultivator's cultivation was high enough and his state of mind was strong enough, he could be considered as a real powerhouse. Later, after experiencing countless tribulations, he finally understood the truth that one's own body was the foundation, and a tall building was built from the ground up. If one's foundation was not good, then no matter how high one's cultivation was in the future, they would end up very miserable if they encountered a real powerhouse. Body cultivation. polishing one's own physique and eventually entering the Tao with the help of the cultivation of spiritual force, one would be able to unleash a terrifying might with bare fists. Even the toughness of a body cultivator's body was not inferior to that of an immortal artifact. Taoist Su Yang fell into silence. He didn't know whether he should believe Tan Xiu's words or not, because many of the contents of Tan Xiu's words were difficult for him to agree with. He even felt that Tan Xiu's words were somewhat exaggerated. Could it be that he knows about the situation of crossing the tribulation? Taoist Su Yang thought about it and then suppressed the idea at the bottom of his heart. He was perfectly aware that his current relationship with Tan Xiu could only be regarded as a casual acquaintance, far from enough to make Tan Xiu tell him some real secrets. However, he also made up his mind to be on good terms with Tan Xiu. Maybe it would be of great benefit to him in the future. After ravaging the two fierce beasts, Tan Xiu casually kicked them a few times. After seeing that they really couldn't get up again, he looked at Taoist Su Yang with satisfaction and said, "All right, don't blindly guess. There are a lot of fierce beasts on this island. I'm afraid there are at least hundreds of them. Help me ravage all the fierce beasts." "All right, then let's separate first." Taoist Su Yang nodded. For a whole day, there were a total of 146 fierce beasts on Resting Cemetery Island, and all of them were ravaged miserably. The blood-curdling screams and howls rang out incessantly. Additionally, Iching directly rushed to the southern sea area of Resting Cemetery Island and captured thousands of fierce beasts. She constantly beat and attacked them, ravaging them even more miserably. Those fierce beasts, who were originally full of wild nature, had been dealt with by her and became very docile, just like obedient little sheep. In the dead of the night, Jiqing, who stood next to Tang Xiu, looked at the dying fierce beasts in front of her and respectfully said, "Venerable Lord, I've probed the area with my spiritual sense. The number of fierce beasts in the radius of 200 kilometers is about 3,600. However, since my spiritual sense is damaged, I can't probe 200 meters deep into the sea. So I don't know how many fierce beasts there are below 200 meters deep in the sea. Also, I haven't found any terrifying fierce beasts you mentioned." Tan Xiu was silent for a moment and slowly said, "First, we'll capture more than 3,600 fierce beasts and bring them to Resting Cemetery Island. Then we'll go down there. If we don't remove the threat, I'm afraid there will be a crisis if we want to rear fierce beasts here in the future." Ji Qimei nodded without a word. In the next 4 days, Tan Xiu and the experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall, as well as Ji Qimei and Taoist Su Yang, spent a lot of effort to capture more than 3,600 fierce beasts and bring them to Resting Cemetery Island. They also took turns to ravage them miserably. "Let's go to the sea." After doing all this, Tan Xiu directly rushed into the sea. Ji Qimei was very powerful. She directly released her immortal force to protect Tan Xiu as the two of them continued to sink to the depths of the sea. "Something's wrong, Venerable Lord." Ji Qimei was originally very casual. After all, she didn't believe that there was any existence on Earth that could threaten her safety with her strength. But after diving 200 to 300 meters into the sea, she keenly sensed something unusual. Chapter 550. Tan Xiu's eyesight was greatly limited at the bottom of the sea, and he could only see the scene tens of meters away. Ji Qimei's words made him keenly aware that the situation was not right. Silence. The deeper they went into the seabed, the quieter it became. Initially, they could still see a few fishes passing by, but the deeper they went, the fewer fishes there were. But now, they couldn't even see a single fish. There must be a reason for this abnormality, and it was definitely not normal. "Jiqing, use your spiritual sense to explore." Tan Xiu looked around and said with a serious face. Ji Qimei forced a smile and shook her head. "I've probed with my spiritual sense, Venerable Lord. But I found a serious problem. My spiritual sense has been severely suppressed. There's even a special energy fluctuation that isolates my spiritual sense from the outside more than 20 kilometers away from here." Tan Xiu's complexion changed as he said, "If I'm not mistaken, the place you're talking about is the direction of Resting Cemetery Island?" "Yes, it's the direction of Resting Cemetery Island." Ji Chimei nodded. Also, Resting Cemetery Island is very strange. There's no gray rock layer under it, but deep seawater. Tang Xiu stared blankly and incredulously said, "You mean, Resting Cemetery Island is floating in the sea?" "Yes, it's completely suspended in the sea," answered Ji Chimei. Tang Xiu's heartbeat accelerated and countless thoughts kept churning inside his mind. He could now guess that there must be an extremely powerful person who had arranged a huge array under Resting Cemetery Island. Not only could this array support the island, but it could also isolate the spiritual sense of immortal cultivators. "Let's go and have a look." Tan Xiu finally made a decision and said in a deep voice. With Ji Chimei here, he didn't believe that there was any place on earth that could bring danger to her. In just a few breaths, Ji Chimei led Tan Xiu to the bottom of Resting Cemetery Island. Reflected in their eyes was an energy screen that exuded golden light. On the energy screen, simple and unadorned Sanskrit characters that seemed to have experienced the vicissitudes of life were constantly moving on the light, as though they had spiritual wisdom. "Ji Chimei, can you break this array?" Tan Xiu studied it for a long time, but he still couldn't see through the mystery of this light curtain. He immediately turned to look at Ji Chimei and asked. Ji Chimei furrowed her brows and nodded. Then she shook her head and helplessly said, "I can break this array, Venerable Lord, but I found a serious problem. If I break this array by force, the entire array will be completely destroyed. If that was the case, Resting Cemetery Island would sink. Everything we've done has gone to waste." Tang Xiu's complexion changed. At the moment when he was at a loss of what to do, a special energy fluctuation suddenly made his fingers slightly numb. He was finally able to sense the fluctuation of a thirst emotion. "What?" Tang Xiu directly opened the interspatial ring. At this moment, the rusty ancient bronze lamp automatically flew out of the ring. Almost at the moment it came to the outside world, a dazzling golden light illuminated hundreds of kilometers of the seabed in a dazzling golden light. In the next moment, the ancient bronze lamp suddenly ignited by itself. A small wisp of flame jumped like a sprite, and a Buddhist sarira exuding a lofty Buddhist radiance quietly floated in front of Tan Xiu and Ji Chimei. "What's this, Venerable Lord?" Ji Chimei asked with a surprised expression. Tan Xiu shook his head in a daze. Although he had obtained the ancient bronze lamp, he had yet to study its mysteries. Usually, he only ignited the ancient bronze lamp when he was cultivating, which could make the surrounding heaven and earth spiritual energy richer and make his mind more tranquil. Buzz, a mysterious aura exuded from the Buddhist sarira. A golden brilliance that was 100 times more intense than the surrounding golden light directly shot into the energy layer. Suddenly, a 4-meter-tall and 2-meter-wide portal appeared in front of them. "Get in!" Tan Xiu and Ji Chimei exchanged glances. After hesitating for a moment, Tan Xiu gritted his teeth and said, "Bush, bush." After the two figures entered the portal, they were immediately stunned by the scene in front of them. There was no seawater here, but an endless space that stretched as far as the eye could see. In this vast space, there was a blue sky and white clouds, a black land, and undulating mountains without any vegetation. However, the countless tombstones and ancient tombs made one's scalp tingle. There are at least hundreds of thousands of tombs in sight. "What is this place?" Tan Xiu muttered to himself. Ji Chimei squinted her eyes and said, "Venerable Lord, this is still the Earth's space. It's just that someone has opened a small world and attached it to the Earth's space barrier. These ancient tombs exude a very ancient aura, as though they are millions of years old. Also, look at the characters on those tombstones. All of them are written in Buddhist Sanskrit. In other words, all the people buried here are Buddhists." Buddhist burial? Tan Xiu suddenly recalled the inheritance he obtained in the walled hill village in Star City, which mentioned something about Buddhist burial. The content recorded there was very little. It only said that among the myriad worlds, there was once a Buddhist world, which was also the original land of Buddhism and the core of its development. Holy monk Amitabha had reached the level of a divine monk and was quite famous in the god realm. Unfortunately, Holy monk Amitabha offended a mighty figure in the god realm and was eventually chased for millions of years. Ultimately, he couldn't escape the calamity, and even the Buddha world was swept away, with hundreds of millions of Buddhist disciples being obliterated. Later on, there were once Buddhist disciples from other worlds that found the shattered Buddha realm. In the end, they created a special world and carried out an unparalleled Buddha burial. Unfortunately, this matter was later learned by that mighty figure. After being chased for tens of thousands of years, that Buddhist disciple managed to escape and was never heard from again. It was as though he had evaporated from the myriad worlds. I never thought that that Buddhist disciple would come to Earth and put the special world he created here. Buddha is compassionate, and the knowledge passed down by Buddhism is full of positive energy in the modern society. Tan Xiu suddenly felt a bit glad that he didn't order Ji Qimei to destroy the array. Otherwise, this world would have collapsed, and the ancient tombs of these Buddhist mighty figures would eventually dissipate into nothingness. Roar! A mournful roar came from the distant sky. Tan Xiu's complexion slightly changed. It was just a roar, but it almost broke his eardrums. Ji Qimei waved her sleeves to protect Tan Xiu and said, "Venerable Lord, there are some living beings here. Shall we go and have a look?" Tan Xiu slightly nodded and said, "Do remember to be careful." "All right." Ji Qimei replied and quickly brought Tan Xiu to the distance. Her speed was extremely fast. In just 2 minutes, she had crossed hundreds of millions of Buddhist tombs and appeared millions of kilometers away. When the outline of a towering mountain appeared in front of them, Ji Qimei's footsteps suddenly halted. "Venerable Lord," Tan Xiu looked around and saw a white and tall golden rock with 2 thick iron chains shackling its feet. Raging flames were burning on the golden rock's body. However, the golden rock was still standing there with its head held high. "Dolls? There are 2 human dolls? Succubus dolls? Interesting. The golden rock slowly lowered its head. After seeing Tan Xiu and Ji Qimei in the distance, it spoke in a jerky voice. "Do you know our origin?" Tan Xiu shouted in a deep voice. "What are you? What are you?" The golden rock lowered its head even more. After a long time, it spoke in a jerky voice. "I'm the golden rock of the God realm, not something. But you actually have his golden relic core. It's a pity that your strength is too weak, else I'd have a chance to leave this place and return to the God realm." Tan Xiu was silent for a moment and spoke again. "I know the golden rock. It's a very powerful mythological beast in the God realm. I didn't expect that Tan Xiu, would encounter a mythological beast. Tell me, how did you get chained here?" The golden rock shook its head and snorted. "I can't remember it. It's really strange. It's like someone erased part of my memory. Who was it?" Tan Xiu stared blankly. He immediately frowned and asked, "Forget it since you can't remember it. But you should be very clear about the Buddha tomb here, right?" The golden rock blinked its huge eyes and suddenly said, "I just remembered something. I followed my master to chase and kill Buddha, but I was captured and chained here." "Master, my master? My master actually doesn't exist anymore? It shouldn't be." After saying that, large droplets of golden liquid flowed out of its eyes. Tan Xiu was dumbfounded. He didn't expect that this golden rock mythological beast would actually cry. What the hell is this? After a long while, Tan Xiu was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh as he said, all right. Let's talk about the most serious matter. If I can rescue you in the future, what benefits can you give me?" The golden rock pondered for a moment before it stopped crying and said, "How about I help you condense your golden body? Although Buddha is very weak, I seem to understand it." Tan Xiu blinked. Golden body of Buddha? What kind of joke was this? The heavenly art of cosmic genesis he practiced was a supreme fiend god cultivation technique, and it was also a supreme fiend god body. If it was forged into a golden body of Buddha, how could he practice in the future? However, the golden rock seemed to have seen through Tan Xiu's thoughts and said with a strange smile, "Interesting, really interesting. Heavenly art of cosmic genesis? You practice the heavenly art of cosmic genesis? Didn't that holy monk Amitabha get this cultivation technique from my master and was eventually chased to death? Interesting." Tan Xiu was taken aback and said in surprise, "You know a lot of things, huh? But why does holy monk Amitabha need the heavenly art of cosmic genesis? The golden rock looked at Tan Xiu as if it was looking at an idiot and said, "Don't you know that the two extremes of Buddha and demon are the cultivation of the wheel? If they are compatible, they will be formed, and if they are separated, they will disperse. Only when Buddha and demon are compatible can holy monk Amitabha take the last step and reach the level of hierarch. Hierarch, my master's realm is the peak existence of the divine world." Chapter 551. Tan Xiu was completely dumbfounded. He was once a supreme in the immortal world, but how could he know the secrets of the god's realm? Even though he had obtained the heavenly art of cosmic genesis back in the immortal world, he couldn't cultivate it no matter how hard he studied it. Not to mention everything this golden rock just said. We'll take our leave if there's nothing else." Tan Xiu let out an embarrassed smile and immediately prepared to leave. Since there was no danger beneath Resting Cemetery Island, his purpose of coming here could be considered to have been achieved. As long as he searched the nearby sea area and captured all the fierce beasts and brought them to Resting Cemetery Island to be tamed and raised, it could be considered as a success. The golden rock was startled and quickly said, "Please don't. You may be nothing but an ant in my eyes now, but don't you want to obtain a Buddhist golden body?" Although Tan Xiu was tempted, his expression remained unchanged. He shook his head indifferently and said, "What use do I have for a Buddhist golden body with my current cultivation? Even if I need it later, I'll just find a Buddhist cultivation technique. The heavenly art of cosmic genesis is difficult to obtain, but a Buddhist cultivation technique is as easy as flipping my hand." "You're really short-sighted, brat," the golden rock angrily shouted. "I'll help you condense a golden body. So how can you be compared to an ordinary Buddhist disciple? Believe me, your physical strength will increase by tens of thousands of times after obtaining a Buddhist golden body. Even an ordinary immortal weapon won't be able to hurt you." Tan Xiu's spirit shook and he said, "There's an old saying here that pies falling from the sky can generally crush people to death. So tell me your conditions." The golden rock let out a long cry and said, "You have great wisdom. My conditions are very simple. When you become a supreme in the immortal world, that is, the peak of the immortal world, come back here and release me." "Is this your condition?" Tan Xiu curiously asked. "Only this one?" "Yes," said the golden rock. Tan Xiu pondered for a moment before he nodded and said, "I promise you." Upon hearing this, the golden rock instantly spread its wings and two golden lights shot out from its wings and directly hit Tan Xiu. Even though Ji Qimei was very powerful, she still couldn't stop it in time. A monstrous heat wave instantly enveloped Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu had a feeling that this unbearable burning sensation was more painful than being cut into pieces or being executed by 1,000 cuts. However, just as he was about to be unable to hold on any longer, a series of ancient golden characters that were filled with the vicissitudes of life continuously appeared within his body. These ancient talismans seemed to be filled with intelligence. As they swam through his body, they fused into the meridians all over his body. One blocked meridian after another was penetrated by the ancient talismans. The ancient talismans occupied the acupoints one after another. The golden light merged with the astral power inside Tan Xiu's body, causing a qualitative change in his astral power. The two extremes of Buddhism and demonic merged to form perfection. When it was full, it would return to one and become primal chaos. In just a few breaths, the astral power in Tan Xiu's body had completely disappeared and was replaced by the newly formed chaotic power. This chaotic power was thousands of times stronger than the astral power, immortal power, and countless times stronger than the divine power. Only when one reached the hierarch realm could he slowly transform the divine power into chaotic power, opening up a new world and forming a new reincarnation. Finally, he could take the last step and become a supreme existence. And Tan Xiu, whose cultivation was not even at the nascent soul stage of ordinary cultivators, actually possessed this kind of chaotic power. If the mighty figures in the immortal world and the divine world knew about it, they would probably go crazy with jealousy. At this moment, Tan Xiu's muscles, bones, meridians, and even his 5 viscera and 6 bowels underwent a qualitative change. His eyes emitted a gray light, and his skin seemed to have darkened a lot as if it had a bronze color. The hair all over his body had long been burned off, but it grew again at this time. Time flew by. After a full 9 days, Tan Xiu's body was completely transformed. After the 2 golden lights disappeared into the golden rock's wings, the golden rock directly lay down and fell into a deep sleep. Tan Xiu's height had increased by several centimeters. His smooth muscles were incomparably beautiful, and his body's proportions had become very perfect. "How do you feel, Lord?" Ji Qimei had been in a tense mood for the past few days as she watched the changes in Tan Xiu's body. At this moment, she saw Tan Xiu open his eyes and hurriedly asked with concern. A smile was outlined on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth as a thick smile crawled on his face. Very good, very good. My current body may not be comparable to an immortal weapon, but it's not too far from it. I really didn't expect that there would be a day when my physique would actually be stronger than those body cultivators. Buddhist golden body. It was not a real body cast from gold, but a human body that had undergone a qualitative change. Even the bones had become comparable to metal and stone. Even Buddhist disciples who wanted to have a Buddhist golden body were powerhouses with profound attainments in Buddhist Dharma. Ji Qimei looked at the golden rock and asked in a low voice, "What happened to it?" Tan Xiu turned to look at the golden rock with a bit of gratitude in his eyes. It didn't matter what happened to it in the past or what enmity its master had with Buddhism. At the very least, it had helped him achieve a Buddhist golden body, making his physique strength soar thousands of times. Rest assured, I'll come back and release you from this place after I return to my peak. Tan Xiu cupped his fists and said with a clear voice. After saying that, he didn't stay any longer and let Ji Qimei take him back the way they came. After he left the portal, he saw the ancient bronze lamp still suspended in the air, and the flickering flame was much dimmer than before. "Is there a problem, Lord?" I sensed a powerful aura from above. Ji Qimei saw that Tan Xiu had stored the ancient bronze lamp into his interspatial ring. As the portal on the light curtain disappeared, her complexion suddenly changed and a glint burst out from her eyes. With a slightly changed expression, Tan Xiu said in a deep voice, "Go up immediately." Ji Qimei's speed was extremely fast. In just a few breaths, she had already brought Tan Xiu out of the sea surface and was only 7 to 8 kilometers away from Resting Cemetery Island. The moment the two of them rushed out of the sea surface, their eyes simultaneously fell on the huge octopus. How strange. This shouldn't be called a fierce beast, right? But the demon? Tan Xiu was surprised. "This is indeed a demonic beast, Lord," said Ji Qimei respectfully. "It has comprehended its own cultivation method and created a brand new cultivation system. There's also a demon core inside its body. It's very different from the beast core inside a high-level fierce beast." Tan Xiu stroked his chin and asked, "What do you think about this demonic beast's strength? Judging from its desperate attack on the Resting Cemetery Island's array, I'm afraid it's much stronger than me." "It's indeed very powerful," said Ji Qimei respectfully. "According to the cultivation level of cultivators, its strength is more than that of a nascent soul stage cultivator and can be compared to a spirit formation stage cultivator. It's really inconceivable for someone with such strength to appear on Earth today. I once sensed a terrifying aura in a certain sea area in the South China Sea." Tan Xiu shook his head. "This shows that there are indeed many dangerous fierce beasts in the tens of thousands of islands in the vast sea. Maybe there are also demonic beasts like this one. Well, it's up to you to get rid of it. It just so happens that my physical strength has greatly increased, so I need to cultivate a higher level cultivation technique. I've cultivated both Buddhism and Demon Tao, and I already have a Buddhist golden body. I just need to cast my demon body." Ji Qimei didn't know much about Tan Xiu's cultivation. She didn't even know that Tan Xiu cultivated the heavenly art of cosmic genesis. Of course, even if she knew it now, she didn't know how powerful and special this cultivation technique was. After receiving Tan Xiu's order, she gently stroked her finger and a lightning bolt appeared out of thin air, instantly forming a terrifying electric net that wrapped the octopus demonic beast inside. Then, Ji Chimei's wrist gently shook and the electric net wrapped around the octopus demonic beast was pulled over, directly appearing in front of the two of them. "Should we kill it directly, Lord?" asked Ji Chimei. Tan Xiu nodded and said, "Kill it directly and decompose its body for me. Also, break down its body for me. Remember, you must keep its demon core and all its blood." "Understood." Ji Chimei respectfully nodded. The electric net shrank, and the octopus demonic beast was dismembered amidst shrill screams. Pieces of its flesh were wrapped by the air currents. Not a single drop of blood or hair of the octopus demonic beast, which weighed more than 10,000 kilograms, was lost. Tan Xiu waved his arm and collected the octopus demonic beast's flesh and blood into his interspatial ring. It took him a few minutes to collect all the flesh and bones. Ji Chimei, catch all the fierce beasts in the sea area within a 500-kilometer radius and throw them on Resting Cemetery Island. We'll immediately return to Jingmen Island after this task is completed. Tan Xiu ordered and then flew toward Resting Cemetery Island. Just now, dozens of Everlasting Feast Hall's experts on Resting Cemetery Island were standing on the shore, watching the octopus demonic beast baring its fangs and brandishing its claws as it constantly whipped the array with its tentacles. However, Ji Chimei easily trapped the octopus demonic beast. That terrifying electric net simply made their hearts tremble. Although they knew that Ji Chimei was very powerful, they didn't expect that she would be this powerful. However, the ones who were most shocked were not the dozens of experts from the Everlasting Feast Hall, but Taoist Su Yang, who was standing on the shore of Resting Cemetery Island. The moment the octopus demonic beast appeared, his heart was already in his throat and he was ready to fight to the death. However, the array arranged by Ji Chimei made him exclaim in surprise. He could feel that the octopus demonic beast was at least 100 times more powerful than him. However, the octopus demonic beast had been attacking it for a long time, yet it still couldn't break the array. Ji Chimei's action ignited the shock in his heart. Is she still human? Even a spirit formation stage expert might not be able to do this, right? Is she a body integration stage expert? Great ascension stage? Thinking up to there, Taoist Su Yang's old face turned particularly splendid. Chapter 552. At the Tang family's ancestral residence in the imperial capital. Tang Guosheng's face was gloomy as he looked at the gray-robed and sturdy old man sitting in front of him. Tang Guosheng had been in the army all his life and had encountered countless storms and waves, but there were only a handful of people who could make him afraid. And the one in front of him was one of them. Dong Bei Hu, I need a reason. Tang Guosheng was silent for a long time before he spat out the words with difficulty. Had it been someone else who dared to ask me for a reason, he would have turned into a corpse by now, said Dong Bei Hu with a calm expression. Even his family would have been wiped out. But you, Tang Guosheng, have a bit of a relationship with me, and I also admire what you did in the past. So I'll give you a reason. I owed a favor to the Yao family back then, and Yao Qingzuan has kept it until now. The reason why I came to your Tang family is to repay that favor. Tang Guosheng clenched his fists and anger burst out from his eyes. After a long silence, he slowly said, 7 days. Give me 7 days to make a decision. Leave and you'll live, stay and die. Dong Bei Hu nodded. I've said what I should say, so it's up to you to decide. You're just an ordinary person with half a foot in the coffin. It's worth it whether you live or die. But think about your family's descendants. Nothing is more precious than living. After that, he slowly stood up and took a step forward. In an instant, he had already disappeared from the room. Tang Guosheng's tense body went limp the moment Dong Bei Hu disappeared. His back was already covered in sweat, and his entire body was filled with exhaustion. If it wasn't for Tan Xiu's treatment that made his body very healthy, he wouldn't have been able to hold on for a long time after today's meeting. Bam, bam, bam. Rapid footsteps came from the door as Tang Guoshou, Tang Yunpeng, and Tang Min rushed in from the outside. When they saw the pale and sweaty Tang Guosheng, Tang Yunpeng hurriedly asked, Dad, what did that Dong Bei Hu say? Did he change his mind? Tang Guosheng shook his head with difficulty and bitterly said, He didn't change his mind. I asked him for 7 days. I'll give him an answer after 7 days. Tang Guoshuo slammed the wall and angrily shouted, cultivators dare to meddle in the affairs of ordinary people like us, and they even dare to make things difficult for big clans like us. Had the Yao family gone mad? If the matter of him using the Amur tiger is spread out, I'm afraid that all the families in the country will be furious and even be on guard against his Yao family. Who knows, they might even secretly unite and find an opportunity to eliminate his Yao family. Tang Guosheng said helplessly, do they dare? Tang Guoshuo's breathing stagnated, and a pained expression appeared in his eyes. Would they dare? The Manchurian tiger's identity was clear to the top figures and the top clans in China. Who would dare to provoke the Manchurian tiger after so many years? Even if it was the most powerful person, didn't they all go to the northeast to visit the Manchurian tiger after they came to power? Dad, I still can't contact Xiao. At this time, Tang Yunda rushed in from the door with an anxious expression on his face. Tang Guosheng waved his hand and said, since we can't contact him, then there's no need to contact him. Although Xiao was outstanding and powerful, he was still too young. Forget it. Inform everyone to hold a family meeting in 2 days and recall all the core members of the Tang family. The Manchurian tiger wants us to leave China and go abroad to fend for ourselves. Ask everyone if they agree or not. The other 4 members of the Tang family looked at each other in dismay. Their faces immediately turned ashen and they fell into silence. Jingmen Island. Tang Yunqing appeared in the everlasting feast hall, dressed in casual clothes and accompanied by only 2 guards. After casually asking for a box, Tang Yunqing spoke to the attendant who came with him, I want to see the everlasting feast hall's boss. I'll have to trouble you to notify him. I'm sorry, but I don't have the qualifications to contact our boss directly, said the beautiful attendant apologetically. I can tell our manager if there's anything you need. Tang Yunqing nodded and said, then tell him that the Tang family from the imperial capital has come. Please wait a moment. I'll leave first. The beautiful attendant nodded and said. A few minutes later, a middle-aged man quickly came from behind Gu Xiaoxue, who was sitting cross-legged on the coast. When he came behind Gu Xiaoxue, he immediately respectfully said, Little boss, someone wants to see you. Gu Xiaoxue floated and asked, Who is it? The Tang family from the imperial capital. The middle-aged man respectfully replied. Gu Xiaoxue's brows raised. She immediately nodded and said, I see. Lead the way. Quickly. When Gu Xiaoxue appeared in the box, Tang Yunqing immediately stood up and said, Long time no see, Miss Gu. Gu Xiaoxue lightly smiled and said, If I remember correctly, you should be Uncle Yunqing, right? Are you looking for our boss this time? I want to see Tan Xiao, said Tang Yunqing immediately. But I've called him many times, but I can't get in touch with him. I learned that he's in Jingmen Island, so I immediately rushed over. Miss Gu, can I trouble you to tell him that I'm looking for him for an urgent matter? Gu Xiaoxue stared blankly and asked with astonishment, An urgent matter? Did something big happen to the Tang family? Our boss went to the sea and I can't get in touch with him for the time being. Tang Yunqing forced a smile and said, Something big indeed happened. If it's not handled well, I'm afraid our Tang family will be finished. Miss Gu, you're someone that my nephew trusts very much, so I won't hide it from you. You should have heard of this Amur tiger, right? I've heard of him. He's very strong. Gu Xiaoxue nodded. That's right. He's very strong. Tang Yunqing nodded and said, There seems to be no one more powerful than him in the entire country. I don't know what method the Yao family used to invite the Amur tiger from his hometown. He gave us a choice to leave the imperial capital and China. Leave the imperial capital, leave the kingdom of Huaxia. Otherwise, he will attack our Tang clan and exterminate our entire clan. Gu Xiaoxue's complexion changed. A cold light flashed in her eyes as she coldly said, Amur tiger? He's very courageous. If it wasn't for my master who helped him break through his cultivation in the past, he wouldn't have the glory he has today. I didn't expect that he would dare to set his eyes on boss's family in just a few decades. Uncle Yunqing, you can rest assured. Although the Amur tiger is very strong, he can't shake the Tang family. Tang Yunqing looked blank for a moment before he forced a smile and said, Miss Gu, it's not that I don't believe you, but that Amur Tiger is not an ordinary person. He's a cultivator. Do you know what it means to be a cultivator? He's an existence akin to an immortal. There's no in case. Gu Xiaoxue waved her hand and said, I'll immediately send someone to follow you back to the imperial capital. If the Amur Tiger dares to attack the Tang family's ancestral residence directly, at least the people I'll send to help you resist for a while. Also, I'll immediately send someone to Clam Island to find my boss. As long as they know my boss, let alone a small Amur Tiger, even if there are 100 Amur Tigers, only death awaits them. Tang Yunqing was stunned. He didn't expect that Gu Xiaoxue could speak such arrogant words. After hesitating for a while, he curiously asked, Miss Gu, do you know about cultivators? Gu Xiaoxue pondered for a moment. She then waved her hand and all the objects in the room that were not fixed floated up. Along with the movement of her wrist, everything began to rotate in a certain pattern. Heavens! Tang Yunqing was shocked. His eyes were wide open, as if he was dreaming. Such means and such a scene were beyond his understanding. I don't know if boss has told you that we're all cultivators, but I'm sure that our everlasting feast hall has someone who can get rid of the Amur Tiger. Moreover, there's more than one of them. However, Xiaoxue needs to ask Uncle Yunqing a favor. When Tang Yunqing saw that everything was put back in place, he immediately asked excitedly, What's the matter? Tell me. As long as I can do it, I'll do it without any hesitation. Gu Xiaoxue said, Uncle Yunqing, I hope you can keep what I just said to you in your heart. I don't want anyone to know about it from your mouth. After all, our identities are very special, and I told you directly without boss's permission. Even my uncle can't do it? Tang Yunqing quickly asked. He's the Tang family's patriarch, and I'm afraid he's under the biggest pressure now. Gu Xiaoxue shook her head and said, Elder Tang's identity is extraordinary. Even if there's pressure, it won't be able to push him down. Furthermore, I think that now is the best time for the Tang family to unite as one. Tang Yunqing was silent for a moment before he nodded and said, I understand. Rest assured, Miss Gu. Since you said so, I'll never tell anyone. Half an hour later, Tang Yunqing left with 2 guards and 30 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall. At the same time, Gu Xiaoxue immediately issued an order to send someone to Clam Island to find Tan Xiu. At Jingmen Island's port, just as Tan Xiu stepped off the liner, he saw several familiar experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall walking toward another liner. His expression changed slightly, and he sent someone to call those people over. Boss, we're about to go to Clam Island to find you. The big man who was called respectfully reported. Looking for me? Tan Xiu was puzzled. But little boss is looking for you. She said that there's an urgent matter. I got it. Tan Xiu's expression changed. After rushing to the Everlasting Feast Hall, he saw Gu Xiaoxue standing at the edge of the parking lot. Apparently, she had received the news of his return in advance. Xiaoxue, you said there's an urgent matter? Gu Xiaoxue gestured to the others. As everyone dispersed, she then said, Boss, I saw Tang Yunqing 2 hours ago. Tan Xiu's expression moved and asked, Is the matter you're about to tell me related to the Tang family? That's right. Uncle Yunqing told me that the Amur Tiger from the northeast has arrived at the imperial capital and is going to attack the Tang family. Gu Xiaoxue nodded. Today's 3rd update has ended. Seeking monthly and recommendation votes for support. Chapter 553. Tan Xiu's strength had skyrocketed, and he was now full of confidence. If it was said that he wanted to challenge Taoist Su Yang before and verify the exact extent of his strength, then he didn't have such thoughts now because Taoist Su Yang was already unable to harm him in the slightest by merely relying on the strength of his physique. Amur Tiger. Tan Xiu had heard of this name from Taoist Su Yang and also had a simple understanding of it. But he never expected that Amur Tiger would unexpectedly attack the Tang family. Why? Despite having a well-thought-out plan in mind, Tan Xiu still asked for the reason. I don't know much, Grandmaster. Would you like to contact the Tang family's elders? Gu Xiaoxue said softly. Tan Xiao suddenly sobered up. He grabbed his mobile and looked at it, only to find that it had already been shut down due to running out of power. He found the charger and charged it for a few minutes before turning it back on. Then he kept receiving text messages and missed calls. Most of them were from the Tang family's people. Imperial capital, Tang family's ancestral residence. Tang Guoxing was smoking a cigarette with a worried expression on his wrinkled face. He was unwilling to accept the downfall of the Tang family in Huaxia. He was even more unwilling to see the Tang family being expelled from Huaxia and struggling at death's door abroad. However, the Manchurian tiger's fame and his supernatural methods were like a mountain pressing down on his heart, making it difficult for him to breathe. Yao family, had I known that you had such a trump card, I would have used the future of the entire Tang family as a gambling stake. I would have shed all pretense of cordiality with you. Even if my Tang family falls, I would have dragged your Yao family to the grave with me. Tang Guoxing thought painfully. Ring, ring, ring. His cell phone rang, but he didn't have the strength to answer it. Only after the ringtone rang for 5 or 6 times did he slowly pick up the phone. When his eyes fell on the name on the screen, his expression slightly froze and his eyes instantly burst with light. After Tang Guoxing picked up the call, he slowly spat out a sentence. You know about it, Xiao? I already know about it, Grandpa. But I don't know much about it. Tell me, what's the situation? Why would that old man from the northeast suddenly want to deal with our Tang family? Tan Xiao's calm voice came through the phone. Tang Guoxing bitterly said, What else can it be? Our Tang family has no enmity with him in the past or in the near future, and it is all because of the Yao family. Forget it, Xiao. Take care of yourself. Don't worry about the family matters. If the Tang family really can't hold on in the end, you should also be prepared to go abroad. Tan Xiao smiled faintly and said, Grandpa, words that boost others' morale and diminish our own prestige don't seem to come from your mouth. In the eyes of others, he may be a Siberian tiger, but in my eyes, he is just a little green insect. There are some things that I haven't told you in depth. Now that things have come to this, I feel that I don't need to hold back anymore. Weren't they just cultivators? If I wanted to kill him, I could do it easily. Tang Guoxing's expression changed and he said in a deep voice, Don't talk nonsense, Xiao. Cultivators are extremely terrifying existences in our country. Although their number is as scarce as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns, each and every one of them possesses the power of ghosts and gods. Ordinary people can't deal with them. I know that you know some cultivation techniques, but Tan Xiao interrupted Tang Guoxing and seriously said, There's something you might not know, Grandpa. I'm also a cultivator, and my strength may not be worse than the Amur tiger. Furthermore, nearly all the core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall are cultivators. If some experts were to act, let alone one Amur tiger, even if there were 10 Amur tigers, I wouldn't put them in my eyes. You can tell me about this matter first. I will set off for the imperial capital in a moment. Leave this matter to me. Tang Guoxing involuntarily exclaimed, What did you just say, Xiao? You're a cultivator? All the core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall are cultivators? How is this possible? How can there be so many cultivators in the world? Tan Xiao calmly said, Grandpa, you should know my character. If I don't have a diamond, I won't do porcelain work. Since I dare to do it, it means that I have enough confidence. In addition, this matter concerns the safety of the entire Tang family, so I won't lie through my teeth, nor will I brag. Tang Guoxing didn't speak for a long time, but the excitement on his old face was very intense. After explaining the relationship between the Yao family and the Amur tiger, Tan Xiao directly hung up the phone. At the Everlasting Feast Hall on Jingmen Island, Tan Xiao had just taken a shower and changed into clean clothes when Taoist Su Yang hurried over. Although Tan Xiao had arranged a residence for him, he still kept thinking about going to the northeast, so he came to find Tan Xiao to discuss when to leave. Taoist Tang, I want to know who's stronger, me or the Amur tiger. When can we set off? Immediately. Tan Xiao gave a clear answer. Taoist Su Yang's eyes lit up and he smilingly said, Taoist Tang is really a man of his word. Then let's go now. What I said immediately is, I'll leave for the imperial capital by myself, And you'll go back to where you came from. Tan Xiu shook his head. There's a special reason, I hope you can understand. Taoist Su Yang's complexion changed and he asked, what special reason? I'm also curious about this Amur tiger. Tan Xiu lightly said, he can become a terrifying figure in the eyes of the top influential figures in China, so it's not a big deal to meet him. However, he ran to the imperial capital and tried to deal with my Tang family, so he's dead meat. Do you want to exchange pointers with someone who's about to die? Taoist Su Yang shuddered inwardly. He recalled Ji Qimei's terrifying strength, as well as Tan Xiu's unfathomable cultivation. He hesitated for a moment before he forced a smile and said, Taoist Tang, are you mistaken? Amur tiger may be powerful, but he never takes the initiative to provoke others. How could he possibly deal with your Tang family? My Tang family is one of the top families in China, explained Tan Xiu. We're in the political maelstrom and naturally have political enemies. This political enemy is the Yao family in the imperial capital. The old patriarch of the Yao family once saved a Amur tiger's life. I don't think I need to say the rest, right? Taoist Su Yang was silent for a while before he helplessly shook his head and said, if that's the case, then let me go to the imperial capital with you. He and I have been rivals for nearly 100 years. Since he's leaving, I hope I can be there to send him off personally. If that's the case, then it's fine. Tan Xiu nodded. The imperial capital. In a high-end specialty store on the 4th floor of Baiyin Mall, Tang Tang was being dragged by her friends to stroll around. The atmosphere in her family was not right these days. Although she wanted to inquire about what happened, nobody was willing to tell her. The result was depressing to her. But the thing that annoyed her the most was not this matter. It was the morning when she was inexplicably bumped into, and the other party even cursed her a lot of vulgar words. Although she was not injured, she argued with the other party for a long time and suffered a lot of vexation. Yan Yan, is it about time? Tang Tang touched her right arm and asked in a low voice. What's wrong with you today, Tang Tang? Guan Yan Yan laughed. I know you're in a bad mood these days, so I dragged you out to relax, but you're still listless. Did something happen? Just tell me if there's something. I'll help you. Tang Tang shook her head and was about to speak. Suddenly, she saw a girl with a pet dog in her arms, dressed in famous brands, coming from a distance, followed by 2 young men. She knew the 2 young men. They were from the Yao family's branch family, very famous hedonistic young masters in the imperial capital. How come they are together? Tang Tang slightly furrowed her brows. To avoid trouble, she pulled Guan Yan Yan and whispered, I'm fine. Let's go quickly. Whoops, isn't this the bitch who bumped into me today? I was alone this morning and you bullied me. How about now? I'm taking my 2 cousins shopping. Why don't you try and bully me again? The girl quickened her pace and came before Tang Tang and Guan Yan Yan. Immediately, Yao Xinlei and Yao Xintao, who stood behind her, looked angry. Yao Xinlei strode to the girl's side and glared at Tang Tang, shouting, So you're the one who bullied my cousin this morning? Tang Tang, I've long wanted to beat you up, but I didn't expect you to take the initiative to provoke us. Come with me. I'll let you know today that your Tang family is not qualified to lick our Yao family's ass. Having said that, he grabbed Tang Tang's arm. Tang Tang angrily swung her arm, but she couldn't break free from the big hand. She immediately shouted angrily, Yao Xinlei, I know you're not a good thing, but what's the use of bullying girls? Let go of me, else I'll call my big brother. Yao Xinlei's heart jumped. He knew who the big brother Tang Tang was talking about was. He and Tang Wei were both living in the imperial capital, and he was perfectly aware of Tang Wei's cruel and merciless character. He would have been afraid if it was any other time. But this time was different. He was following his cousin Yao Xinhua's plan, so he naturally wasn't afraid of Tang Wei. Tang Tang, this matter isn't over yet. Call your big brother if you have the ability. I'll change my surname to Tang if I don't beat him up. Tang Tang struggled to break free from Yao Xinlei's hand. She took out her mobile and quickly called Tang Wei, explaining the whole situation in a clear and organized manner. Wait for me. This was Tang Wei's reply. Half an hour later, Tang Wei arrived with 4 of his recently recruited men. He didn't think much and immediately gave the order to beat up Yao Xinlei and Yao Xintao. However, just as the 4 youths were about to make their move, 20 to 30 youths dressed like hooligans suddenly appeared nearby with clubs in their hands. Without any words, those youths attacked the 4 youths brought by Tang Wei. Bastards! If Tang Wei still didn't know that the present situation was arranged by Yao Xinlei and Yao Xintao in advance, then he would be out of his mind. Yao Xinlei proudly shouted, "Take them away from me. Send them to the small dark room and hand them over to Brother Xinhua to deal with. It's a new week, please vote for me." Chapter 554. Baiyun Mall was a high-end place in the imperial capital, and its security force was quite good. However, Yao Xinlei had long bribed the mall's security guards by relying on his identity and promised some benefits. Therefore, the group of people escorting Tang Wei and Tang Tang didn't encounter any obstruction as they left. However, this dispute was seen by a certain family's junior in the imperial capital. He knew Yao Xinlei and the others as well as Tang Wei's group. After all, they were the silk pants of the imperial capital, and it was impossible for them not to attract attention. Therefore, the news that Tang Wei and Tang Tang were escorted away by Yao Xinlei's group quickly reached Tang Guoxing's ears. "Find them and rescue them." Tang Guoxing issued the order with a gloomy face and mobilized all the Tang family's intelligence network in the imperial capital, using all their connections. On the other side, the Yao family didn't seem to deliberately hide their whereabouts, so Tang Guoxing learned the address where Tang Wei and Tang Tang were escorted to in just over an hour. At the same time, Tan Xiu and Daoist Su Yang appeared at the imperial capital airport. The siblings, Light and Dark, who had just returned to Jingmen Island's everlasting feast hall, also followed them to the imperial capital. Tan Xiu hung up the phone and a ruthless look flashed in his eyes. He faintly regretted that he didn't directly get rid of Yao Xinhua when he was in Jingmen Island. Little Dark House? Tan Xiu sneered inwardly. According to the address he just got from Tang Guoxing, he directly stopped a taxi and the 4 of them rushed to the destination. Imperial Capital's Bridgehead District, Jia Baol Amusement Park. Yao Xinhua sat in the empty innermost part of the amusement park's haunted house with a lit cigarette dangling from the corner of his mouth. The entire haunted house was dimly lit, with smoke lingering in the air and a gloomy atmosphere that sent chills down one's spine. The 2 brothers, Yao Xinlei and Yao Xintao, stood on both sides of Yao Xinhua. They crossed their arms and looked at Tang Wei and Tang Tang, as well as Guan Yanyan, who was caught because of Yang Qi. "What's wrong? Young Master Tang, are you afraid?" Yao Xinhua flicked the cigarette ash and sat cross-legged on the chair, teasing. Tang Wei's expression was very calm. He looked at Yao Xinhua's complacent expression and lightly said, "There's something I forgot to tell you. Your grandpa is afraid of everything, but I'm not afraid of your Yao family's cowards. Yao Xinhua, I originally thought you were the most outstanding descendant of the Yao family, but I didn't expect you to play this kind of petty tricks. It seems like I overestimated you." "Tang Wei, what's the point of flaunting your tongue?" Yao Xinhua mocked. "Actually, I've wanted to deal with you for a long time, but unfortunately, I've been delayed by all sorts of things and ended up dragging it until now. Your Tang family is already on the decline, and I'm afraid it won't be long before you'll be chased out of China. In the future, you won't be a majestic Tang family disciple in my eyes, but a battered and exhausted stray dog." Tang Wei looked angry and sneered, "Yao Xinhua, I know you've been delayed by various things in the past and have been bullied by my younger brother, Tan Xiu. But you're still willing to mention such a shameful thing? I feel ashamed for you. Do you really think you can guess what will happen to the Tang family in the future?" "Tan Xiu?" Yao Xinhua clenched his fists tightly with a resentful look in his eyes. What he hated the most now was this name and its owner. If he could, he wished he could hack Tan Xiu into pieces and pull out his tendons and skin him alive. Glaring coldly at Tang Wei, Yao Xinhua coldly said, "Tang Wei, your tone is very tough, but I don't know if your bones are tough or not. But you can rest assured. These 2 younger brothers of mine have been drooling over your younger sister for a long time and will absolutely not test whether her bones are tough or not." "Hee hee. Yao Xinlei and Yao Xintao deliberately revealed a smiling expression as they looked at Tang Tang while stroking their chins. Tang Tang didn't have a trace of fear. She even puffed out her small chest and said, "Yao Xin, don't you know that these two dogs of yours are useless? Also, if these two dogs dare to touch a finger of mine, it's tantamount to shedding all pretense of cordiality with my Tang family. Your Yao family is very strong, but how can you know what cards my Tang family has in hand?" Tang Wei stared blankly for a moment. Looking at his younger sister's unexpectedly tough attitude, he instantly understood what she meant. She was bluffing to deter Tang Xinhua. In an instant, he reacted and pretended to be angry as he shouted, "Shut up, Tang Tang." Tang Tang's eyes lit up. She understood that her brother had understood her intention, so she deliberately revealed a resentful expression and turned her face to the side. Yao Xinhua's heart thumped. As a descendant of a major family in the imperial capital, he naturally knew that every major family had their own trump card. A few days ago, his grandfather personally said that the Tang family was not as weak as they looked on the surface and must have some trump cards. Therefore, in order to deal with the Tang family, his grandfather personally invited the Amur tiger to the imperial capital. Could it be? What trump card does the Tang family really have that they're not even afraid of the Amur tiger? Yao Xinhua didn't know much about the situation of cultivators, but Tang Tang's words and Tang Wei's performance made him secretly vigilant. He decided to change some of his previous thoughts. However, he didn't really intend to let his two cousins humiliate Tang Tang. His words just now were just a threat. He didn't even intend to let his men beat Tang Wei. His purpose was very simple, to humiliate Tang Wei and the Tang family. As long as Tang Wei yielded, it would be the same as slapping the Tang family's face. "Men, castrate Tang Wei for me. I really want to know what interesting things will happen in the future after the dignified young master of the Tang family becomes the last living eunuch on earth." Yao Xinhua clapped his hands and shouted. Immediately, four big men, who had long prepared some tools, strode to the front of Tang Wei. Two of them grabbed the tied-up Tang Wei and forcefully pressed him on a bench. The last living eunuch on earth? Interesting indeed. A strange voice came from a distance. Just as the voice faded away, a hazy figure appeared at Tang Wei's side. Along with the four blasts of air, the four big men, who were about to deal with Tang Wei, instantly stiffened on the spot. Yao Xinhua abruptly stood up from the chair with a horrified look in his eyes. What shocked him was not the arrival of Tan Xiu, but the fact that Tan Xiu was standing at Tang Wei's side in a flash. Such a terrifying speed was absolutely something he had never seen before in his life. Where did this dog come from? Yao Xinlei's brows pricked up as he stepped forward and shouted. Puff! A crescent-shaped machete rotated at an extremely fast speed and directly cut into Yao Xinlei's neck. In less than 1/100th of a second, Yao Xinlei felt that the world was spinning, and his line of sight kept moving. He saw the ceiling and a headless corpse with blood spurting out of its neck, clad in white. The handsome and unrestrained light silently appeared at Tan Xiu's side. The crescent-shaped machete evaporated along with the blood on it and returned to his hand. Bam, 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 bam. The sound of bodies falling to the ground kept ringing on both sides. More than 20 of Yao Xinhua's men desperately clutched their throats as they fell to the ground and twitched, gradually losing their movements. Yao Xinhua's complexion changed. He recalled the night when he participated in the charity gala in Jingmen Island, where he fell unconscious without knowing it. He was astute and had already guessed that the person he knocked unconscious was Tan Xiu. But now, the terrifying strength displayed by Tan Xiu, as well as the white-clothed man, brought him a deep threat. However, what shocked him the most was that more than 20 of his subordinates, who were standing in the shadows, were killed just like that. He didn't even know who did it. Tan Xiu. An angry roar came out of Yao Xinhua's mouth. A smile outlined on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth. He cut off the rope on Tang Wei's body with a powerful qi and calmly walked to the front of Tang Tang and said with a light smile, "Are you afraid?" Tang Tang's eyes were very bright. She liked this big brother of hers very much and had heard a lot of things this big brother had done. Her quick-witted eyes blinked as she giggled and said, "I was afraid, big brother Tan Xiu." But now that you're here, I'm not afraid anymore. Tan Xiu smiled and untied the rope for her. He also untied the rope on Guan Yanyan's body and then said with a smile, "Did you hear what I just said? Some people think that the last eunuch on earth is very interesting, so I need to ask you to do something. After you go out, you must spread the news that young Master Yao Xinhua of the Yao family has become the last living eunuch in the world." As Tan Xiu's voice faded away, a hazy shadow flashed in the darkness. At this moment, Yao Xinhua suddenly clutched his crotch with fear and pain in his eyes as he screamed. "Big brother!" Yao Xintao's complexion greatly changed. But before he could finish shouting, his head was cut off. Fortunately, the haunted house was quite dark, and Yao Xinlei and Yao Xintao were a bit far away from Tang Tang and Guan Yanyan. Otherwise, they would have been scared silly. Tang Wei got up from the chair and fiercely punched the 4 big men who seemed to have their bodies immobilized. Then he ran to Tan Xiu's side and said, "Tan Xiu, kill this Yao Xinhua." "I'll kill him, but not now," said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. "Brother Tang Wei, take them home first. I'll go back to find you after I've dealt with the matters here." "I'll stay and help you," said Tang Wei quickly. "I don't need your help. I can easily deal with the matters here." Tan Xiu shook his head and smilingly said. Tang Wei hesitated for a moment before he silently nodded and said, "Then we'll wait for you at Grandpa's place." A few minutes later, Tan Xiu walked to the chair where Yao Xinhua had just sat. He sat on it and kicked Yao Xinhua, who was curled up on the ground and howling in pain, to the side. Then he smilingly said, "How is it? Heaven is treating you well, isn't it? Your dream has come true and you've become the last living eunuch in this world. Don't you feel particularly honored?" "Fuck you, Tan Xiu." A suction force gushed out from Tan Xiu's hand and directly made Yao Xinhua kneel on the ground. He then grabbed his neck and coldly snorted, "You can curse me if you want to die now. Call your elders if you don't want to die now and ask them to come and save you. Remember, the Amur tiger must come." Chapter 555. Humiliation was like a poisonous snake biting his heart, while fear was like a cold current that invaded his soul. Yao Xinhua once stood on the top of the tallest building in Las Vegas, holding a glass of red wine and overlooking the world. He thought that he was the leader of the new generation of talents and the most outstanding elite in the world. However, at this moment, feelings of humiliation and fear intertwined, making his heart turn to ash and full of despair. At this moment, he realized that he was just like a frog in a well, arrogant and conceited. In China alone, Tan Xiu of the Tang family was far from what he could deal with. "Cough, cough, just kill me." Yao Xinhua's throat was clutched by Tan Xiu. His face flushed as he spat out a sentence with difficulty. Bam! The moment Tan Xiu released Yao Xinhua, he kicked his chest. Even though he used less than 10% of his strength, it still broke several of Yao Xinhua's ribs. With a bit of killing intent, Tan Xiu smiled and said, "You want to die? Do you really think you can die? I'll tell you bluntly that I have countless ways to make you beg for death. Do you believe me?" Yao Xinhua, who was lying on the ground, covered his chest with his hands. Even though he was in extreme pain, he still snorted coldly. A smile was outlined on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth. His figure flashed and appeared next to Yao Xinhua. His fingers hit more than a dozen acupoints on his body and then sat back on the chair. "With your current physical condition, you should be able to persist for half an hour. After 25 minutes, I'll start treating you and guarantee that you'll be full of vigor. Then, I'll let you continue to feel this wonderful feeling. By the way, you should be able to believe what I said, right? After all, I have another identity, and that is, I'm called the young divine doctor by others." Yao Xinhua's hands were tightly clenched. Blue veins protruded on his forehead, and his eyes even began to turn bloodshot. A heart-wrenching pain seemed to come from the depths of his soul. He had received devilish training abroad, and the pain he had endured was not even a 10,000th of the pain he was feeling right now. This feeling, he felt like he was in the 18th layer of hell, suffering countless cruel tortures. He wanted to scream and roar, but he could only make low whimpers in his throat. He wanted to die immediately, but he couldn't do it at all, because he couldn't even muster the slightest bit of strength in that intense pain. He could neither live nor die. Yao Xinhua finally believed that people could have such feelings. Moreover, he believed Tan Xiu's words because Tan Xiu was indeed known as the young divine doctor. If he couldn't take it anymore and was on the verge of death, he might really be able to cure him and continue to endure this pain. He was defeated. He finally lowered his proud head in an attempt to beg for Tan Xiu's forgiveness and agree to Tan Xiu's request. However, he had no way to express himself. He could only struggle in endless pain and twitch in despair. Once the 25 minutes were up, Tan Xiu immediately lifted the torture on Yao Xinhua's body. Yao Xinhua was lying limp on the ground like a dead dog, gasping for breath. Tan Xiu clapped his hands and exclaimed, "My guess is correct. Enduring for half an hour is not a problem. I'll start treating you now and let you continue to endure this pain after you're cured. I'll continue to feed you after you've endured it for 3 days and 3 nights. I believe the pain will be more than 10 times more painful at that time." After saying that, Tan Xiu pretended to treat him. While Yao Xinhua was in despair, he was finally able to speak. He roared with an extremely hoarse voice, I'll make a phone call. Spare me. I'll do as you say." "He surrendered so quickly?" Tan Xiu said with a strange expression. "This is not the style of the young master of the Yao family." "Style my ass." Yao Xinhua wailed inwardly. After struggling for a while, he crawled up with difficulty. He knelt on his knees and crawled half a meter toward Tan Xiu, pleading, "I was wrong. I shouldn't have provoked the Tang family. I shouldn't have provoked you. I beg you to spare me, even if you have to kill me." Tan Xiu rolled his eyes and coldly snorted, "You're really a cheap wretch. I gave you face, but you don't want it. You just want to cry and beg me to give you a chance. All right, talking to an ant like you is already giving you face. Make a phone call. According to what I just said, it's best to let your Yao family's patriarch come. If he doesn't want to come, at least let that Amur tiger come. If you can't do it..." Yao Xinhua's complexion changed. He took out his mobile with a panicked expression and dialed his grandfather, Yao Qingzuan's cell number with trembling fingers. "What's up, Xinhua?" After the call was connected, Yao Qingzuan's dignified voice came out of the phone. "Save me, Grandpa," Yao Xinhua hurriedly called out with a hoarse voice. "I can't bear it anymore. He's too ruthless." At the Yao family's ancestral residence, Yao Qingzuan was sitting in an armchair while answering the phone. Sitting opposite him was a Moor tiger, who was tasting the best tea he had served. Upon hearing Yao Xinhua's words, Yao Qingzuan's complexion greatly changed. He suddenly stood up and shouted in a deep voice, "What happened? Who is he?" "Tan Xiu." "He's Tan Xiu," shouted Yao Xinhua. "I originally planned to humiliate Tang Wei of the Tang family. Who would have thought? Grandpa, please come and save me. Tan Xiu is too terrifying. He has already killed Xinlei and Xintao. I'm afraid I won't be able to live long if you don't send someone here." Yao Qingzuan's body trembled and disbelief burst out from his eyes. Although Yao Xinlei and Yao Xintao were not his biological grandsons and were stubborn and mischievous in nature, they were, after all, members of the Yao family and had medium aptitude in the new generation. But now, they were actually killed? Or was it that damn Tan Xiu of the Tang family? "Where is he?" asked Yao Qingzuan in a deep voice. "I'll send someone there immediately." "Grandpa, Tan Xiu specifically asked a Moor tiger to come here. I beg you. He said that if a Moor tiger doesn't come, I'll still be dead," cried Yao Xinhua. "Quickly send him here. Many members of our Yao family have been killed. I'm at the Jiabao amusement park in the Quoto district, in the haunted house." Yao Qingzuan finally revealed a horrified expression. "Many people have been killed? What does that mean? Apart from Yao Xinlei and Yao Xintao, many others have been killed? Wait!" Yao Qingzuan hung up and looked at Amur tiger. At this moment, Amur tiger had already heard the conversation between Yao Qingzuan and Yao Xinhua. Although the voice coming from the phone was very low, he could still hear it clearly. Looking at Yao Qingzuan's gaze, he directly asked, "Is that Tan Xiu a member of the Tang family?" Yao Qingzuan knew how powerful Amur tiger was, so he nodded and said, That's right. He's the most outstanding descendant of the Tang family. He has destroyed a lot of our Yao family's affairs. He's just a brat. Amor Tiger shook his head and smilingly said, since he specifically asked me to go there, then I'll go and clean him up. The Tang family is really stupid. If I didn't promise to give Tang Guosheng 7 days, I would have gone there to destroy the Tang family now. I believe the 7 days will be up soon, said Yao Qingzuan in a heavy tone. The Tang family has overestimated themselves, so let them continue to live in fear. With you here, the Tang family won't be able to stir up any waves. Dong Bei, who was very satisfied with Yao Qingzuan's words. He nodded and followed Yao Qingqing, who was called over by Yao Qingzuan, outside. Time fleeted by. Half an hour later, Yao Qingqing arrived at the Jebel amusement park in the Quoto district with dozens of Yao family members and Amor Tiger. Standing in front of the entrance of the haunted house, Yao Qingqing respectfully said, Master Hu, they are inside. Sorry to trouble you. Amor Tiger smiled and shook his head. Just as he was about to step into the haunted house's entrance, he keenly caught a figure nearby. When he saw the figure, he instantly retracted his foot and instantly pounced toward the other party. In just half a second, he stood in front of the other party. How come it's you? Amor Tiger frowned and looked at the person in front of him. A forced smile appeared on Taoist Su Yang's face. After shaking his head, he raised the jar of wine he had prepared in advance and said, We've known each other for a lifetime, yet we don't have any killing intent toward each other. Speaking of which, we can be considered as half friends. You're about to leave today, and as your friend, I'm here to see you off. If there's an afterlife, I hope you'll mind your own business in the future. Amor Tiger's complexion changed and he coldly snorted, What do you mean by that damned old Taoist? You don't need to ask me. Taoist Su Yang sighed. You've already set foot here, so I'm afraid it'll be very difficult for you to leave today. This jar of wine is for you to see you off. Please. Amor Tiger's heart skipped a beat, but he didn't take the jar of wine. Instead, he stared at Taoist Su Yang. After a long time, he slowly asked, Have you broken through? Yep. Taoist Su Yang nodded. Even if you've broken through, you're still far from being on par with me. Amor Tiger sneered. If you really want to support the Tang family, then don't blame me for disregarding our many years of friendship and killing you here today. Taoist Su Yang slightly furrowed his brows. He shook his head and said, I think you misunderstood. Since you want to deal with the Tang family, there will naturally be people from the Tang family who will deal with you. I'm just here to see you off. Gazing deeply at Taoist Su Yang, Amor Tiger suddenly burst into laughter and said, Your joke is really funny, Taoist Su Yang. I think this jar of wine shouldn't be a farewell wine for me, but a celebratory wine. I originally planned to give the Tang family some time, but now it seems that they have made their decision. I'll directly exterminate the Tang family after I deal with these guys here. Taoist Su Yang's expression moved and he asked, You really don't want to drink it now? I'll drink it after I kill them. Amor Tiger sneered. It seems that my painstaking efforts are in vain. Taoist Su Yang sighed. You can't drink this wine after all. Go. Amor Tiger sneered, but he became cautious inwardly. His figure instantly disappeared and appeared in the haunted house a few seconds later. What a strong smell of blood. Amor Tiger's brows furrowed after he set foot here, and the vigilance in his eyes turned more intense. Today's third update. Seeking recommendation votes and monthly votes for support. Chapter 556. Inside the dark haunted house, Tang Xiao had already maintained a cross-legged posture, and the cigarette between his fingers was also emitting green smoke. Dressed in white, the handsome light was fiddling with the crescent-shaped machete in his hand and didn't even glance at Dong Bei who just came in. In the darkest corner, dark seemed to have blended with the darkness and converged her aura. Even though Dong Bei who had a very high cultivation, he didn't notice the slightest abnormality. Of course, this was also because of the black cloth in front of her. Your Tan Xiao? Dong Bei whose eyesight was amazing. He was secretly shocked when he saw more than 20 corpses inside, 2 of which were headless. His identity was extraordinary, but he didn't want to commit murder before. It had been more than a decade since he killed someone with his own hands. Shoo! Tan Xiu raised his right index finger and put it to his mouth. His eyes moved away from Dong Bei Hu to look at Yao Chengqing and the dozens of experts of the Yao family. Dong Bei Hu furrowed his brows. But his 200 years of lifespan had long given him great wisdom and patience. Therefore, he fell into silence and calmly stood there, wanting to see what kind of trick Tan Xiu would play. After Yao Chengqing entered the haunted house, he smelled a strong smell of blood. His complexion changed and he dashed to the front of Dong Bei Hu. His eyes swept over the corpses and finally landed on Yao Xinhua, who was lying limply on the ground like a pile of mud. Son! Yao Chengqing roared and dashed to Yao Xinhua's side. He squatted down and carefully propped him up, letting him sit on the ground and lean on his arms. Yao Xinhua's breathing was weak and his face was as pale as a sheet of paper. His handsome face was now wet with sweat in addition to the coagulated blood scabs. His blurred vision clearly saw that it was his father who held him up. He squeezed out a smile and said in a hoarse voice, "I'm sorry, Dad. I have one favor to ask of you, just one favor." Yao Chengqing's eyes overflowed with tears as he repeatedly nodded and said, "Tell me, son. Dad will promise you anything." Yao Xinhua's throat squirmed and he pleaded, "Please kill me, Dad. Dying in your hands is better than dying in his hands. I'm afraid I won't be able to die in peace." Yao Chengqing's heart trembled as a heart-wrenching and lung-splitting pain surged inside him like a tide. His hands grabbed Yao Xinhua even tighter as he repeatedly shook his head and said, "Son, you won't die. Don't worry. As long as I'm here, no one can kill you." Saying that, he was about to get up and walk towards Tan Xiu. However, Yao Xinhua burst out with all the strength he had gathered after resting for a while. He grabbed Yao Chengqing's foot and hurriedly shouted, "Dad, let's go. You're not his match." When Tan Xiu saw the scene before him, he clapped his hands and said with a smile, "What a touching scene." The deep love between father and son. However, since you're here today, don't be in a hurry to go back. Of course, you won't be able to go back anyway. It just so happens that I'm someone who likes to do good deeds, so I'll send you, father and son, to the Yellow Springs Road today, so we can take care of each other on the way, no? Yao Chengqing squatted down again and hugged Yao Xinhua. He glared at Tan Xiu and sternly shouted, "I've long heard that there's a great freak among those cowards of the Tang family. I didn't expect that you're more powerful than I imagined. But, even if you're powerful, what can you do? You can kill ordinary people like them, but can you challenge Lord Hu? Stupid boy, today is the day you die." Tan Xiu grinned. He flicked the ash on his cigarette and smilingly said, "Seeing you so full of confidence, I suddenly remembered a saying, extreme prosperity is bound to fall. The Yao family has been powerful for decades, and the children of this family have been infected with an arrogant and domineering aura. Their bones are incomparably arrogant. It's a pity that the vision of the top families in China is too narrow. Well, since you're also a respected figure in the Yao family, I'll use your blood to pay tribute to the deceased members of my Tang family today." Whoosh! The crescent-shaped machete in Light's hand instantly shot out and rapidly rotated toward Yao Chengqing. At this moment, Dong Bei Hu coldly snorted and flicked his fingers. A flame rose from his fingertips and hit the crescent-shaped machete. Light's body trembled and a dense killing intent appeared on his face. Dong Bei Hu's complexion greatly changed and he retreated half a step back, barely managing to stabilize his body with his toes. However, even so, his wrist still felt a little sore and numb, and there was also a faint pain. "Hold on." Tan Xiu raised his arm to stop Light from continuing to attack. He let out a faint smile as he glanced at Dong Bei Hu and smilingly said, "You must be the legendary Dong Bei Hu of the Northeast, right? You're already so old, yet you don't want to spend your remaining years in your hometown in the Northeast. Instead, you actually run out here and cause trouble. Even if you don't think about yourself, don't you think about your descendants?" Dong Bei Hu glanced at him with vigilance, but a storm was constantly churning inside his heart. During the exchange just now, he discovered a situation that made his heart go cold. The white-robed young man in front of him, who looked to be only 26 or 27 years old, had a very strong cultivation base. He even faintly felt that the young man was superior to him. However, such a powerful young man actually stood respectfully next to Tan Xiu, greatly raising his vigilance against Tan Xiu. He had a feeling that Tang Xiu exuded a very evil aura. This kind of aura was like a dormant python that could pounce and bite him at any time. He wanted to see through Tan Xiu's strength, but he found that looking at Tan Xiu in front of him was like looking at the flower in the mirror and the moon in the water, a blurry scene. You seem very confident, young man. Dong Bei, who, after all, had his own dignity. Looking at Tan Xiu, who looked down on him, he couldn't restrain the anger inside him. Don't be afraid. Tan Xiu smilingly said, I may hate my enemies and will do anything to get rid of them, but I won't easily touch your descendants. Of course, the premise is that they don't provoke me, else I don't mind uprooting them. Actually, I just want to figure out one thing. Dong Bei, who squinted his eyes and asked, What do you want to know? The reason why you came to the imperial capital to make things difficult for my Tang family is not just to repay the Yao family's life-saving grace, am I right? Tan Xiu smilingly said. Dong Bei, who stared blankly for a moment and then looked at Tan Xiu in surprise. As a matter of fact, his purpose in coming to the imperial capital was indeed as Tan Xiu said. It was not just to repay the debt of gratitude. He also wanted to help him get a lot of cultivation resources through the Yao family. As a cultivator, the higher his cultivation level was, the more cultivation resources he needed to consume. But he hadn't mentioned this purpose to the Yao family's patriarch for the time being. The idea only existed in his mind, and he couldn't figure out how Tan Xiu guessed it. You're right. I need something and the Yao family should be able to help me. Tan Xiu nodded and said, It's really a good idea to kill two birds with one stone. But it's a pity that you've just shot yourself in the foot. Not only will you not get any benefits, but you'll also end up losing everything, suffering a double loss. All right, I'll give you a chance to survive. Dong Bei, who couldn't help laughing. Although Tan Xiu and Light gave him some pressure, he didn't believe that these two brats would be his match in a desperate fight. Although he had been concealing his strength and rarely fought with others all these years, he was also an old man who had gone through a storm of blood, so he wasn't afraid of fighting. Interesting. Tell me, what kind of chance will you give me? I'll give you 24 hours to kill all the direct descendants of the Yao family, said Tan Xiu. I want to see no less than 100 corpses. The smile on Dong Bei, whose face gradually faded and was replaced by a sneer as he ridiculed. Young man, do you really think you can kill me just because you have some ability? It seems you don't want the chance I'm giving you, no? Tan Xiu said. That's not necessary, sneered Dong Bei, who. The most pitiful thing is that you're a frog in a well, yet you're so arrogant and conceited. Tan Xiu shook his head and sighed. Well, you've been living in China for nearly 200 years, so it's time for you to experience your tribulation now. Light, I need the golden core inside his body to concoct a pill. Understood. Light respectfully replied. His figure instantly appeared in front of Dong Bei, who. As the crescent moon-shaped machete danced in the air, layers of overlapping blade images instantly shrouded Dong Bei, who. At the same time, flames appeared out of thin air and lightning bolts suddenly surged. In a very short time, an electric flame array was formed and suppressed Dong Bei, who. What? Dong Bei, who had never seen such a method. While he was horrified, he also realized that he might have encountered an unprecedented crisis today. When Tan Xiu said that he needed the golden core inside his body, he realized that Tan Xiu had seen through his cultivation. What shocked him the most was that Tan Xiu even threatened to use the golden core to concoct a pill. Break! Dong Bei, who brandished his steel fists, and a huge amount of true essence gushed out. Fist images appeared and fiercely bombarded the crescent moon-shaped machete. At the same time, a small peachwood sword appeared in his hand out of thin air. A trace of blood was forced out from his finger and quickly fused into the small peachwood sword. The blazing sword light seemed to be able to tear the space barrier and stab the electric flame array. Tan Xiu furrowed his brows and indifferently said, I don't want this haunted house to be destroyed. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, a black cloth wrapped around the Manchurian tiger. A flying sword moved like a sentient fish and gracefully swept past Dongbei's neck. Despite Dongbei dodging extremely fast, a bloody wound was still left on the right side of his neck. How can there be someone else here? Dongbei was scared out of his wits. His earth-shattering strike couldn't even break the electric flame array. However, a flying sword that only existed in legends had almost decapitated him. Chapter 557. The inexplicable appearance of two young cultivators had already made Dongbei extremely surprised. The fact that the two young men who attacked him had such a powerful strength shocked him to the point that it was hard for him to recover. Escape! The thought formed in Dongbei's mind, but he forcibly suppressed it. He found that although the two young men were not worse than him, they weren't much stronger than him. Even if it was difficult for him to win against the two of them, it would be as difficult as ascending to the blue sky for them to kill him. Tan Xiu quietly sat on the chair. The moment he saw the three people attack, a piece of jade appeared in his hand out of nowhere and was accurately placed under the chair. The array that he had set up in advance was activated by Tan Xiu after the jade was placed. As a layer of light curtain moved on the wall, the aftermath caused by the three people's fight was blocked by the array's light curtain. There's a path to heaven, but you don't want to take it. Dongbei, even if you can linger at death's door and barely hold on for some time, you can't protect them. Two silver needles appeared between Tan Xiu's fingers. With a flick of his fingers, the two silver needles pierced into the glabella of Yao Chengqing and Yao Xinhua at lightning speed. However, Tan Xiu's control of the silver needles was extremely exquisite. After the silver needles pierced into the glabella of the two people, they didn't immediately die. Instead, they felt dizzy and temporarily passed out. "Kill him!" shouted a martial arts grandmaster of the Yao clan. Although he was shocked to see Dongbei and the other two people fighting, he also seemed to see the hope of killing Tan Xiu. As he pulled out a tang knife, he aggressively pounced toward Tan Xiu. Tens of experts of the Yao family finally sobered up from the shock. They followed the martial arts grandmaster and stormed toward Tan Xiu. They had never seen Tan Xiu's strength and felt that although Tan Xiu had two powerful subordinates, he didn't have much ability himself. As long as they killed him, it would affect his two subordinates. A slight mistake in a fight between experts could end up with their heads separated from their bodies. Die! The expert from the Yao family, who was the first to reach Tan Xiu, raised his tang saber and slashed down at Tan Xiu, as if he wanted to split Tan Xiu in half. Courting death! Tan Xiu's face turned cold, and an illusory sword shadow flashed in his hand. After piercing through the right side of the opponent's chest, it swam back and forth like a fish. Dozens of Yao family experts rushed at Tan Xiu, but before they could get close to him, their hearts were pierced, and they fell to the ground in pain, twitching as they died. Another flying sword? Manchurian Tiger was also paying attention to Tan Xiu's situation while resisting the attacks from the light and dark duo. What shocked him was that Tan Xiu was still using a flying sword. He found it hard to believe that such a divine weapon like the flying sword actually existed in this world. What was even harder for him to accept was that he had already seen two flying swords today. Who were they? If the Tang family really had such a powerful force, wouldn't the Yao family have been eliminated a long time ago? Why was the Tang family always suppressed by the Yao family for so many years? He was stunned for a moment. The sword light in Light's hand suddenly pierced through his arm, and just as his complexion greatly changed, another sword light swept toward him. At the same time, several lightning bolts as thick as silver needles appeared in front of Manchurian Tiger despite being blocked by the sword light. After Manchurian Tiger dodged the sword light, 4 lightning bolts silently penetrated his body. These 4 lightning bolts didn't directly penetrate his body, but in the blink of an eye, they had already stirred up his internal organs. Puff! Manchurian Tiger crazily spurted out a mouthful of blood, and a strong fear rose in his heart. The 2 flying swords suddenly exploded above his head, and layers of sword shadows spiraled toward his head. Get lost! With despair in his heart, Manchurian Tiger fiercely punched the sword shadows. However, the spiraling sword shadows were like a meat grinder, crushing his fist. Amidst the spray of blood, Dark's figure had already approached Manchurian Tiger's back. A sharp dagger pierced Manchurian Tiger's waist, and a hooked whip formed by quintessential essence instantly pulled out the golden core from Manchurian Tiger's dantian and threw it at Tan Xiu, who was sitting on the chair. Shake seal. Tan Xiu's eyes lit up. He kept clapping his hands and instantly set up an isolation array. At the same time, he waved his sword to cut off the connection between the golden core and Manchurian Tiger. Arg. Manchurian Tiger was completely in despair. He never dreamed that the two youngsters in front of him would have so many fighting methods. He didn't expect that their combined strength would far surpass his. The fighting time from the beginning to the end didn't even exceed a minute, and the golden core in his body was forcibly taken away. With the golden core, his broken internal organs might be able to recover. But losing the golden core meant that he had lost his most important trump card. There's nothing I can do to reverse the situation. Just as this thought emerged in Manchurian Tiger's mind, a deep sense of regret welled up inside him. He found that he had indeed been sitting in a hole and looking at the sky. He thought that his strength was one of the best in the entire country. He did not expect that just two young men would be able to take his life. Just now, Tan Xiu gave him a chance, but he missed it because of his arrogance. Just now. Taoist Su Yang reminded him, but he ignored it because of his arrogance. At this moment, Manchurian Tiger was in despair. The regret almost made him die. He couldn't help but regret that he didn't drink the wine that Taoist Su Yang gave him when he was outside. I can't accept this. With a roar, Manchurian Tiger's body was split into two halves. With a satisfied smile, Tan Xiu took back the silver needles on Yao Chengqing and Yao Xinhua's glabella. As the two of them slowly woke up, Tan Xiu lit a cigarette again. He looked at the father and son duo and smilingly said, I can give you another chance. Let your Yao family's patriarch come in person. If he comes, you and your father can live. But if he doesn't come, you'll have to suffer inhuman pain. Yao Qingqing's heart fell into an ice cave as he clearly saw the scene in front of him. The dozens of Yao family experts he brought with him have already been completely wiped out. What scared him the most is that the famous Manchurian Tiger has actually been killed. His body was split into two halves, looking very miserable. Isn't Manchurian Tiger one of the best powerhouses in China? How could he be killed? Did that damn Tan Xiu use some despicable and shameless means? Yao Qingqing thought in despair. What he didn't know was that his son, Yao Xinhua, who was next to him, was even more desperate after hearing Tan Xiu's words. Suddenly, Yao Xinhua turned his hand and grabbed a sharp dagger from his trousers. It was as if his deepest potential burst out at this moment. The blade flashed and pierced Yao Qingqing's heart. What? Yao Qingqing's pupils shrunk, but his eyes were wide open and filled with disbelief. He lowered his head with difficulty and looked at the dagger stuck in his chest, as well as the hand of his son, Yao Xinhua, on the hilt of the dagger. Why? Yao Qingqing's voice was trembling. Yao Xinhua let out a bitter smile. With the pain and 2 lines of tears on his face, he said in a hoarse voice, Dad, you should have killed me just now. I wouldn't have to see such a scene again, and I wouldn't have to continue suffering. Tan Xiu's means are too ruthless, and the pain is unimaginable to ordinary people. I can't bear it, but I can't stop it. I can't die even if I want to. I've experienced it before, so I can't let you experience the feeling of being unable to live or die again. After that, he knelt in front of Yao Qingqing, but suddenly turned his head to look at Tan Xiu. He put the dagger on his neck and shouted, Surnamed Tang, we lost. We lost completely and utterly, and I'm convinced of our defeat. We can die, but you want my grandpa to die? You're just talking in your sleep. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and said, Yao Xinhua, I think it's quite interesting for you to kill your father with your own hands, so I didn't stop you. But do you think you can commit suicide if I don't let you die? Yao Xinhua's body trembled and he suddenly exerted force on his wrist. The moment the dagger and sword pierced his neck, a black shadow flashed and directly cut off his wrist, cutting off his entire hand. Yao Xinhua screamed and screamed in pain with bloodshot eyes. Tan Xiao got up from the chair and came to Yao Xinhua's side step by step. He didn't look at Yao Xinhua, but his eyes fell on Yao Chengqing, who was still alive. He lightly smiled and said, "If you don't want your son to be tortured to the point of being unable to live or die, then call your Yao family's head. You only have half a minute." Yao Chengqing looked at his son in despair. At this time, he finally understood why his son did this. Since he was going to die today, his son just wanted him to die a quick death and not be tortured to death. How ruthless! Yao Chengqing closed his eyes in pain and his teeth instantly bit his tongue. Alas, Tan Xiao shook his head and turned to look at Yao Xinhua, only to find that he also bit his tongue. He immediately furrowed his brows and shook his head with a sigh. Why bother? The Yao family will be exterminated sooner or later. I originally wanted the Yao family to exist for a few more years, but I didn't expect that you would court your own doom. Well, since you want to die, then I'll be kind and let you suffer less. The blade rose and fell. Yao Chengqing and Yao Xinhua, father and son, were instantly killed by Tan Xiao. Standing in the hall, Tan Xiao looked at the corpses all over the floor and the bloody scene. Then he calmly said, "Burn this haunted house and burn all the corpses inside to ashes." Suddenly, a hazy figure appeared out of thin air. With a bit of grief, Taoist Su Yang looked at the Amur tiger that was split into two halves. As the wine from the wine jar in his hand was sprinkled next to the Amur tiger's corpse, he murmured, "How can others kill you if you don't provoke them? The sins of the heavens can be forgiven, but the sins brought upon oneself can't be avoided. Old friend, have a safe journey." Tan Xiao lightly glanced at Taoist Su Yang before he turned and walked outside. Chapter 558. Tang Family Ancestral Residence. Tang Guosheng stood in the courtyard with a gloomy expression. At this time, apart from him, almost all the core members of the Tang family had arrived. There were also hundreds of experts that the Tang family had nurtured. They had sealed off the entire Tang family's ancestral home and the area within a radius of several hundred meters. Still no news? Tang Guosheng could not help but ask. Tang Min stood to the side and shook her head with an ugly expression. Suddenly, several figures rushed in from outside the courtyard. Tang Wei and Tang Tang rushed into the courtyard and shouted, "We're back, Grandpa!" Tang Guosheng's expression changed and a pleasantly surprised look appeared in his eyes. He walked a few steps toward the duo and loudly said, "Good, good, good. It's good that you came back safe and sound. Where was Xiao? Didn't he go to save you? Why didn't he come back with you?" "Grandpa, Tan Xiao asked us to come back earlier. He said that he'll stay to deal with the Yao family. Before we came back, he led his men to kill many Yao family clansmen. By the way, Yao Xinlei and Yao Xintao of the Yao family were killed by Tan Xiao's men. That Yao Xinhua was also castrated and turned into a living eunuch." Tang Guosheng's complexion changed. He didn't feel happy because the three juniors of the Yao family were killed and injured. Instead, he was horrified and asked in a deep voice, "Little Wei, are you sure that Xiao wants to stay and fight against the Yao family? That Manchurian tiger?" Unexpectedly, Tang Wei interrupted Tang Guosheng's words and said, "Grandpa, Tan Xiao is someone who knows his limits. He wouldn't have stayed there to wait for death if he didn't have full confidence. Don't worry. Maybe he'll be back soon." Tang Guosheng angrily shouted, "Nonsense." Although he knew some martial arts, what kind of person was the Manchurian tiger? He was a cultivator who had lived for 100 or 200 years, a monster that even the leaders of the country feared. "Yunpeng, you stay here and organize our Tang family members to withdraw from the capital immediately. I will personally lead some people to find Xiao. Even if I die, I will not let him suffer any harm." Tang Yunda paced 2 steps forward and said in a deep voice, "Dad, you stay. Tan Xiao is my son. As his father, I have to go personally. So, I'll bring some people over." Tang Guosheng angrily shouted, "You're his father, but I'm his grandfather. Do as I say and hurry over at once. Yun Qing, return to the 27th Army immediately and wait for my orders. Once the Yao clan wants to exterminate our Tang clan, then we'll fight it out with them. At worst, we'll have a life and death struggle." "All right." Tang Yunqing agreed. He called his son, Tang Ning, and quickly ran outside. Tang Guosheng looked at Tang Min and said in a deep voice, "Go back immediately and wait for my order at the Armed Forces Department." "Yes." Tang Min agreed and quickly left as well. Just as Tang Yunqing, his son, and Tang Min were about to walk out of the courtyard gate, two figures blocked their path. "What are you doing?" Tang Yunqing recognized the identity of the two men in front of him. They came from Jingmen Island and were Tan Xiu's subordinates. An expert of the Everlasting Feast Hall respectfully said, "Mr. Tang, you know very little about our boss, so you don't believe in his ability. Similarly, you also don't know about our Everlasting Feast Hall's heritage. Please don't be anxious and wait for a while. Or you can directly call boss and ask about the situation over there." Tang Yunqing turned his head and looked at Tang Guosheng. Tang Guosheng was silent for a moment before he directly grabbed his mobile and dialed Tan Xiu's number. After a short while, the call was connected. "Were you now, Xiu? How's the situation over there?" asked Tang Guosheng hurriedly. "I was just about to call you, Grandpa," said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. "I didn't expect you to call me ahead of me. The matter here has been solved, so I'll go back now." Tang Guosheng quickly asked, "It's settled?" asked Tang Guosheng quickly. "How else can it be solved?" "I killed them all," said Tan Xiu with a smile. Tang Guosheng asked in surprise, "What about the Manchurian tiger? Didn't he go?" "He came and was killed by my men," said Tan Xiu. "Also, I killed Yao Chengqing of the Yao family. He's the son of the Yao family's patriarch, so it can be said that he has temporarily vented our Tang family's anger." Tang Guosheng was horrified. "What did you say? Yao Chengqing is dead? And you said your men killed the Amur tiger? How is that possible? Is it very difficult to kill the Amur tiger, Grandpa?" Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. "I told you that my ability is much stronger than you can imagine. Let alone one, even if there are 10 Amur tigers, they won't be able to live long if I really intend to get rid of them." Tang Guosheng was still somewhat unable to accept the fact that the Amur tiger was killed. After a moment of silence, he immediately said, "Xiu, since the matter over there has been solved, come back immediately. I'll be waiting for you at home." "All right," Tan Xiu replied and hung up the phone. Outside the haunted house, a cold glint flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes as he looked at the burning haunted house. Light quietly stood behind him, while dark was nowhere to be seen. "Taoist Su Yang, it's not convenient for you to continue following me since the Amur tiger is dead. So, go back to where you came from. I hope you can keep the matter about the Everlasting Feast Hall a secret." Taoist Su Yang was silent for a moment before he slowly nodded and said, "Taoist Tang, I know what I'm doing and I won't speak carelessly. However, there's something I want to tell you." "Speak." Tan Xiu nodded. "Can I go to the Everlasting Feast Hall to ask you for advice when I have free time in the future?" Taoist Su Yang pondered for a moment before he nodded and said, "I used to be a frog in the well, mistaking that your strength is inferior to mine. But now I realize that you can easily kill me if we really fight." Tan Xiu pondered for a moment before he nodded and said, "All right. After all, you helped me with something in Resting Cemetery Island, so I'll agree to your request. However, it's best for you to contact me before you go to the Everlasting Feast Hall since I rarely stay there." "I already have your contact number, so I'll contact you in advance before I go," said Taoist Su Yang quickly. "All right, then you go first," Tan Xiu said. Along with Taoist Su Yang's departure, Tan Xiu and the Light and Dark trio quickly left and arrived at the Tang family's ancestral residence. At this moment, everyone in the Tang family's ancestral residence was quietly waiting. The atmosphere in the entire courtyard was particularly solemn. With the arrival of Tan Xiu, all the core members of the Tang family had their eyes on Tan Xiu. Su Lingyun, who had rushed over, ran to Tan Xiu with a nervous expression and hurriedly asked, "Are you all right, Xiu?" Tan Xiu smiled and shook his head. He gently hugged Su Lingyun's shoulder and smilingly said, "Mom, do I look like someone who has something to do with me? Don't worry. I've solved everything that needs to be solved. It's just a small problem." "How is it a small problem?" Su Lingyun said. "This, Tan Xiao interrupted Su Lingyun and smilingly said, I'm not a child anymore, Mum. I know what I'm doing. You don't want to see our Tang family being forced by the Yao family to leave the imperial capital and China, do you? No, I don't. Su Lingyun shook her head. That's why I'll do whatever I can. Tan Xiao smilingly said. Don't worry. I'll definitely pay attention to my own safety. Su Lingyun nodded. Tan Xiao loosened Su Lingyun's shoulder and came to Tang Guosheng's front. Then he smilingly said, Grandpa, Dong Bei who is really dead. His corpse was also burned. Additionally, Yao Chengqing, Yao Xinhua, Yao Xinlei, and Yao Xintao, for members of the Yao family, were also killed by my men. At the same time, dozens of experts of the Yao family were also killed. One of them was a martial arts grandmaster, but he also died. Upon hearing Tan Xiao's words, Tang Guosheng's heart couldn't help but tremble. At present, the biggest enemies of the Tang family were the Yao family and Dong Bei who. Dong Bei who was dead and the Yao family suffered heavy losses, which was definitely a great thing for the Tang family. However, he was still puzzled and couldn't figure out how Tan Xiao killed Dong Bei who. Tan Xiao smilingly pointed to Light, who came in with him, and lightly said, Grandpa, he's Light, my grand disciple. There's also Dark, and it's inconvenient for her to appear. Their strength is not worse than Dong Bei who. Tang Guosheng's body shook. He carefully observed Light a few times and then nodded with satisfaction. Good boy. I really didn't expect you to be more powerful than that Dong Bei who has lived for more than 200 years at such a young age. You're overpraising us. Light faintly smiled and modestly replied. Tang Guosheng looked at Tan Xiao again and said, Xiao, since Dong Bei who is dead, then we. With a cold expression, Tan Xiao said in a deep voice, Since the Yao family really wants to shed all pretense of cordiality with us, then I won't endure it any longer. The earlier we get rid of this hidden danger, the smoother the development of our Tang family will be. Grandpa, can you temporarily hand over the power of the Tang family to me? I guarantee that the Yao family will be removed from the imperial capital within 3 days. Can we discuss this matter again, Xiao? Tang Guosheng quickly said. The Yao family has a deep foundation. Even if our Tang family can remove them, I'm afraid we'll suffer a great loss. There will be 60 experts rushing to the imperial capital by tonight at the latest, said Tan Xiao. All of them are cultivators, and the weakest among them is stronger than a martial arts grandmaster. With their cooperation, I don't think the Yao family will be able to resist such a terrifying force even if they have a deep foundation, right? Tang Guosheng was stunned. He simply couldn't believe his ears. 60 cultivators who are more powerful than martial arts grandmasters? At the side, all the members of the Tang family looked at Tan Xiao in shock. Never in their wildest dreams did they expect that Tan Xiao would have such a terrifying armed force. Tang Yunda strode toward Tan Xiao and seriously asked, Son, you're not lying, right? Are there really so many experts coming? Tan Xiao nodded heavily. Tang Yunda turned to look at Tang Guosheng and said in a deep voice, Dad, I believe in Xiao. I believe you've seen what he has done in the past. Just agree to it. Our Tang family can't endure it anymore. Tang Guosheng seemed to have made up his mind and said in a deep voice, If that's the case, then let's do it. I'm going to make some calls. The third update is over. Asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Chapter 559. Compared with the jubilation of the Tang family, the Yao family was gloomy. After Yao Qingzuan sent his son Yao Chengqing out, he thought that the Tang family would be miserable. After all, the Amur tiger was following them. However, while Yao Qingzuan was quietly waiting for the news, another piece of information was sent to him. A fire broke out in the Jibeol amusement park in the Quoto district. Originally, with Yao Qingzuan's identity, a fire in an area of the imperial capital would not attract his attention at all. He would even be too lazy to care about such a trivial matter. But today was different, because the place where the Yao family and the Tang family were fighting was in the Jibeol amusement park. After receiving the news, Yao Qingzuan immediately contacted his son Yao Chengqing, but the result made his heart sink. Because his son's mobile phone was turned off, and the mobile phones of all the people who went with him were also turned off. If only one person's mobile phone was turned off, he might not care, but dozens of people's mobile phones were all turned off. This was a big problem. He immediately ordered the Yao family members who were paying attention to the situation there to immediately investigate. As a result, his son Yao Chengqing and the Amur tiger led dozens of experts of the Yao family into the haunted house of the Jibeol amusement park, including his grandson Yao Xinhua and dozens of Yao family members. They didn't come out of the haunted house until the fire burned it to the ground. All dead. This was the conclusion that the Yao family sent people to investigate. And this conclusion made all the senior members of the Yao family dumbfounded and frightened. "Dad, what should we do?" Yao Qingdong had just returned from outside when he heard the bad news. Looking at his father, who seemed to have aged a lot in an instant, he still felt a chill all over his body even though he was a high-ranking official. Although Yao Qingzuan had experienced countless storms in his life, this huge loss, the death of his son and grandson, was something he could not bear. Looking at his second son's nervous face, he did not speak for a long time. "What should we do? What can we do now?" The Amur tiger was simply an immortal-like expert. Even he died in the hands of the Tang family, indicating that the Tang family must have a very terrible person. This kind of person was absolutely not someone their Yao family could resist. Moreover, he had not figured out what the real background of the Tang family was. If the Tang family had been quietly developing all these years and had now developed to the point where they could clean up the Yao family, then the future of the Yao family would be worrying. After a long while, Yao Qingzuan secretly sighed and bitterly said, "Investigate the Jibeol amusement park first. No matter who did it, we have to get to the bottom of it." "All right, I'll arrange it right away." Yao Qingdong didn't have a good idea and could only nod and agree. Tang family ancestral residence. After Tang Guosheng made a few phone calls, he returned to the courtyard. His expression was a little ugly, and he sat on the chair with his brows furrowed. He didn't say anything for a long time. The dozen or so core members of the Tang family looked at each other in dismay. They did not understand what kind of problem the old man had encountered to make him show such an expression. In the end, it was Tan Xiao who broke the silence and asked, "Grandfather, are you in trouble?" Tang Guosheng silently raised his head and looked at Tan Xiao's tranquil expression. He forced a smile and said, "I'm indeed in trouble. That person usually turns a blind eye to the disputes between the top families in the imperial capital. Even the neutral parties rarely intervene. But just now, in my conversation with those people, they don't want our Tang family to make any big moves, and even more so, they don't want to cause a huge upheaval in the country. There's even a bit of threat in their words. If our Tang family moves against the Yao family with a thunderous momentum, I'm afraid we'll encounter a lot of resistance." Tan Xiao slightly furrowed his brows. After a long time of silence, he said, "Grandfather, how about I pay a visit to those people?" "What do you mean?" asked Tang Guosheng with a slightly moved expression. "I remember an old saying that those who obey me will prosper, and those who oppose me will perish," said Tan Xiao calmly. "If they don't want to accept the benefits offered by our Tang family, then we'll solve it with force." Tang Guosheng waved his hand and said, "Xiao, our Tang family will never do that unless it's a last resort. As the #1 leader, he has made a lot of great achievements since he took office, and all of them are for the sake of the country. The struggles between our families are just trivial matters, so we can't make things difficult for him. Furthermore, given the Yao family's status, it's bound to cause a huge upheaval in the country if we make a move. This is also the reason why the Yao family has been unwilling to tear all decorum with our Tang family for so many years, and only kept having small frictions with us in the dark." Having said that, he shook his head and sighed. "Yao Qingzuan has been my rival for a lifetime, and we both know each other very well. It's just that he's old and muddle-headed. In fact, even if you didn't lead your men to act, the Yao family won't be able to completely eliminate our Tang family. At most, they can only make us suffer heavy losses. Because he won't allow it." Tan Xiao stared blankly and asked with a puzzled expression, "Since that Amur tiger has taken action, does he have a way to restrain him? I've fought against the magnificent China, and there are many strange people and strange things happening there," said Tang Guosheng with a meaningful expression. It's just that those people are either roped in or hidden, so they won't show their faces in public. When I was working in the state's secret vault, I secretly read several special top-secret documents. I know those documents, but Yao Qingzuan doesn't. I dare say that there are at most 3 or 4 leaders who know these top-secret documents, and those 3 or 4 people are all figures who have served as the number 1 leader. Tan Xiu's expression slightly changed, and he instantly understood what Tang Guoxing meant. After a while, "If that's the case, then let's make it simple," said Tan Xiu. "Grandpa, you'll announce to the public that you're unwell and recuperate at home starting from today. Our Tang family's people will do whatever they need to do, and I'll solve the Yao family's matter." "How are you going to solve it?" asked Tang Guoxing quickly. "If I remember correctly, Yao Qingzuan is already 83 years old this year, right?" Tan Xiu said with a smile. "He has lived to such an old age, so it's worth it." "What?" Tang Guoxing's expression changed, and disbelief was written all over his face. Even the other Tang family members in the surroundings were also dumbfounded, as they understood Tan Xiu's meaning. "Kill Yao Qingzuan?" The smile on Tan Xiu's face disappeared and was replaced with a bit of ruthlessness. He then said in a deep voice, "Yao Qingzuan is the pillar of the Yao family. If he's gone, this pillar will also be gone. Yao Qingqing and Yao Qingdong are the next successors of the Yao family, and they are the only ones who are in charge of the Yao family now. Yao Qingqing is dead, and only Yao Qingdong is left. A single log cannot make a boat. The Yao family is not far from declining." Tang Guoxing was silent for a moment. He then slowly nodded and said, "We can do it, but we must do it secretly. Are you sure about it?" "No problem." Tan Xiu nodded without hesitation. The night was hazy. 2 ghostly figures silently appeared in the Yao family's ancestral residence. Almost without any effort, Tan Xiu and Dark appeared outside the house where Yao Qingzuan lived. Sharp daggers tore the throats of 2 experts of the Yao family hiding outside the house and stuffed their bodies into a dark corner. Cough, cough. The coughing sound inside the house indicated that Yao Qingzuan had not fallen asleep yet. "Come in." Tan Xiu slightly nodded and closed the door the moment he opened it. In a flash, Tan Xiu and Dark appeared in front of Yao Qingzuan's bed. "Get up and talk if you're not asleep." Tan Xiu's voice was very calm. The moment Yao Qingzuan opened his eyes, he had already walked to the rattan chair opposite the bed and sat down, lighting a cigarette for himself. Yao Qingzuan abruptly sat up with a horrified look in his eyes. He turned on the bedside lamp and shouted after seeing Tan Xiu and Dark, "Who are you?" Tang Xiu raised his finger to his cheek and lightly smiled. "You should be able to recognize this face of mine, right? Or should I not be the one you hate the most in your heart?" Yao Qingzuan's pupils shrunk. After seeing Tan Xiu's face, he coldly said, "You're Tan Xiu?" "That's right, it's me." A smile outlined on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth as he took another puff. Yao Qingzuan was silent for more than 10 seconds before he slowly closed his eyes that were filled with despair. After a while, he opened his eyes again and bitterly said, "Can you tell me a question? Who killed my son and grandson? And the Amur tiger? Who else in the Tang family has this kind of ability other than me?" Tan Xiu lightly smiled. "You're right." Yao Qingzuan nodded and said, "All the information of the Tang family is in my bedside cabinet. They don't have this kind of ability. Did you come here tonight to take my old life? You're an old man who doesn't die." Tan Xiu exclaimed. "You've lived for more than 80 years. Although you're muddle-headed sometimes, you're also very shrewd sometimes." "That's right. This day next year will be the anniversary of your death. That's why I came here this time." Yao Qingzuan let out a bitter smile. He straightened his chest and said, "Kill me if you want." "Do you have any wishes?" asked Tan Xiu with a smile. "You can tell me and I'll definitely help you achieve it. Of course, my grandpa also said that although you've been fighting with him all your life, he doesn't want you to die without dignity. I won't let you suffer before your death." Yao Qingzuan was silent for a while and then said, "I can die, but can you let the rest of my family go?" "No problem, of course," said Tan Xiu. "But I also have a condition." "What is it?" asked Yao Qingzuan. "Make Yao Qingdong resign," said Tan Xiu. Do you want to push my Yao family to the point of no return? Yao Qingzuan angrily shouted. Is this also considered as being forced to the point of no return? Tan Xiu coldly snorted. You've racked your brains to find the Amur tiger in an attempt to drive my Tang family out of China. Isn't that even worse? Yao Qingzuan's breathing suddenly stagnated after hearing it. Tan Xiu was right. The Tang family was a big family. If they were forced to leave China to fend for themselves abroad, their fate would not be much better. I'll make the call. The early bird gets the worm. Asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes _. Chapter 560. Yao Qingdong was nearly 50 this year, and his children had already graduated from college. As a feudal lord, he usually had his own house when he returned to the imperial capital, and it was a high-end villa in a certain high-end villa area. In the past, it was late at night, and he should have fallen asleep long ago. He should have looked for the Duke of Zhou to drink tea and have a golden millet dream. But today, he couldn't sleep. In the past, for the position of the Yao family's patriarch, he and his elder brother Yao Chengqing had secretly competed against each other. Both of them were definitely thorns in each other's eyes. Even if the thought of getting rid of each other was very small, it was still there. But today his big brother was killed, which was hard for him to accept. In the future, there would no longer be anyone competing for the position of the Yao family's patriarch. It would be a piece of cake for him to become the future Yao family's patriarch. But he also realized a serious problem. If the Yao clan declined, even if he became the head of the Yao clan, what could he do? Ring, ring, ring. The urgent ringtone of the cell phone interrupted Yao Qingdong's thoughts and startled him. When he grabbed the phone and saw the caller ID, his expression suddenly changed. He hurriedly answered the call and said, "Dad, are you looking for me?" Yao Qingzuan's voice came from the phone. "Chengdong, promise me one thing." Yao Qingdong asked in confusion, "What is it?" Yao Qingzuan said, "Quit your current job and come back to the capital to take charge." Yao Qingdong was stunned, and then his face changed greatly. He jumped up from the chair and hurriedly shouted, "Dad, what are you talking about? My current position is very important. How can I resign so easily?" Yao Qingzuan interrupted Yao Qingdong and said in a deep voice, "Our Yao family is now in a precarious situation. If you don't come back, it will be very difficult for our family to get through this crisis. Don't ask me why I want you to do this. I have my own difficulties." Yao Qingdong hurriedly asked, "Dad, you can tell me if you have any difficulties." Yao Qingzuan interrupted Yao Qingdong again and said in a deep voice, "Don't ask anymore. Remember my words. Quit your current job as fast as possible and go back to the ancestral mansion in the imperial capital. Also, don't be enemies with the Tang family in the future. Try to ease the relationship between the two families." Finished. Yao Qingzuan hung up and turned off his phone. Looking at Yao Qingzuan's resolute expression, Tan Xiu nodded and praised, "You're indeed worthy to be the Yao family's patriarch. You're resolute and resolute. I'll give you half an hour. It's best if you deal with it yourself." Yao Qingzuan was silent for a moment. His whole person seemed to have aged a lot. He slowly walked to the bedroom cupboard, opened the drawer, and took out a medicine bottle. Then he poured a glass of water and poured out all the sleeping pills. He turned around and looked deeply at Tan Xiu, then swallowed all the sleeping pills in his hand. "The winner takes all. Since my Yao clan has lost, I have nothing to complain about. I hope you can give our Yao family some face and let our descendants live on. If your Tang family still can't vent your anger, you can chase my Yao family's descendants out of the imperial capital, even if you want to chase them out of Huaxia country." Tan Xiu's heart was a little complicated, but he still hardened his heart and nodded. The Yao family and the Tang family were old enemies, and the Tang family had suffered a lot under the Yao family's oppression for so many years. Although none of the Tang family's direct descendants died in the hands of the Yao family, the Tang family's vassal families and a large number of talents cultivated by the Tang family had died in the hands of the Yao family. In the past, the Yao family's shadow was very likely involved in his father's matter. Tan Xiu watched as Yao Qingzuan returned to the bed and pulled the quilt to lie down. He then took out a pack of cigarettes from his pocket, lit it up, and took 2 deep puffs. Then he waved his hand. Whoosh, Dark's figure instantly disappeared. After smoking a cigarette, Tan Xiao slowly got up. He looked at Yao Qingzuan's unconscious appearance and murmured, "You just said that the winner takes all. It's an unchanging truth. Since you wanted to go against the Tang family, you should be aware of the consequences of losing. Your son and grandson are already waiting for you down there, so you won't be lonely down there." That night, aside from the interlude of Tan Xiao's arrival, everything seemed calm and peaceful in the Yao family's ancestral mansion. Even Yao Qingdong, who rushed to the ancestral mansion late at night, stood outside the door of the old patriarch's room and didn't dare to step inside. Early in the morning, Yao Qingdong, who had been waiting outside for most of the night, frowned and looked at the door. It was reasonable to say that the old patriarch should have woken up at this time. How come there was no movement today? A cry of alarm came from the small courtyard next door. Yao Qingdong's expression slightly changed. He strode to the small courtyard next door and saw the panic-stricken housekeeper sitting paralyzed on the ground. Following her gaze, Yao Qingdong looked at the corner. 2 corpses were lying in the corner, and the blood had already coagulated. They were simply covered with a few pieces of newspaper, but it didn't cover their whole bodies. Yao Qingdong dashed to the 2 corpses and squatted down to examine them. He suddenly looked up and seemed to realize something. He dashed to the next courtyard and kicked open the door of the old patriarch's room. When he sprinted into the bedroom, he saw the old man lying flat on the bed, and his heart that was hanging in the balance was slightly relieved. "Dad, it's time to get up," Yao Qingdong called. There was no movement. Yao Qingzuan, lying flat on the bed, was motionless. Yao Qingdong was stunned. He knew that the quality of the old patriarch's sleep was very poor, and he would wake up at the slightest movement. However, she had kicked open the door and called for him. Why was there no response at all? Yao Qingdong hesitated for a moment. Just when he was about to call again, he glanced at the counter next to him. A medicine bottle? He strode over, grabbed the medicine bottle in his hand, and looked at the instructions on the medicine bottle. His pupils instantly contracted. He rushed to the bed with a little panic and shouted, "Dad, wake up." There was no response. There was no response. Yao Qingdong's heart instantly jumped to his throat. He hurriedly put his hand under the old patriarch's nostril. To his horror, the old patriarch didn't breathe at all. Then he grabbed the old patriarch's wrist and put it on the old patriarch's chest. How can this be? The blood drained from Yao Qingzuan's face as he staggered back a few steps. 2 lines of tears rolled down his cheeks. The tears couldn't hide the pain in his eyes. Imperial capital, Tang family. Tan Xiao sat in front of Tang Guoxing, and Tang Guoxing. On both sides were Tang Yunpeng, Tang Yunda, Tang Yunqing, Tang Dong, Tang Min, and Tang Yan. Is he really dead? A complicated light flickered in Tang Guoxing's eyes, and his voice turned particularly deep. He's really dead. It's a suicide. Tan Xiao nodded. Tang Guoxing closed his eyes and slowly opened them after a long while. He got up and walked to the bookcase at the side. He took out a bottle of wine and sat back in the distance. Then he poured the bottle of wine in front of him and muttered to himself, "Old geezer, we've been fighting for a lifetime. Now that you've gone ahead of me, I'll send you off as an opponent. I hope we won't be opponents again in the next life." Having said that, Tang Guoxing fiercely smashed the bottle. He suddenly looked up at Tan Xiao and said in a deep voice, "This matter ends here, Xiao. The Yao family's patriarch is dead and the Yao family has suffered heavy losses. Even if they want to shed all pretense of cordiality with our Tang family, I'm afraid they have lost the courage to do so." "There's something I must tell you in advance," said Tan Xiao. "What is it?" asked Tang Guoxing. "Yao Qingdong will soon resign from his current position and return to the imperial capital to take over the Yao family's patriarch position," said Tan Xiao. Tang Guoxing's eyes lit up and he quickly asked, "Did you do it?" "I did." Tan Xiao nodded. Yao Qingzuan called Yao Qingdong before he died. Tang Guoxing rubbed his hands. An excited look appeared on his old face as he said, Yao Chengdong is the only important person in the entire Yao family now. As long as he retires from his current position, the Yao family will be nothing to worry about. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and clapped his hands. Suddenly, the door was opened from the outside. With a smile on his face, Guang handed a stack of documents to Tan Xiu and then left the room. "What's this?" Tang Guosheng raised his brows and curiously asked. The other members of the Tang family in the room also revealed curious expressions. They had no idea what the documents in Tan Xiu's hands were, nor did they know what kind of wishful thinking Tan Xiu had in mind. However, looking at the faint smile on Tan Xiu's face, they faintly felt that this document was very important to the Tang family. Tan Xiu handed the documents to Tang Guosheng and said, "Our Tang family and the Yao family didn't have such a big enmity before. But now we have a blood feud. Even if we let the Yao family off this time, the Yao family will become bigger in the future, and I'm afraid they'll attack us. I think we need to do something to avoid trouble in the future." Tang Guosheng didn't ask again and read the documents together with Tang Guosheng and Tang Guoshou. The more they read, the more strange the expressions on their faces became. In the end, the three of them looked frightened. The sins of heaven can be forgiven, but the sins of one's own can't be avoided. If we publicize this information, I'm afraid the Yao family will be finished. As the saying goes, when a wall is down, everyone will push it. Yao Qingzuan is dead, and the Yao clan has suffered a heavy loss. If Yao Chengdong steps down from that position, with so many clans and forces in this document, won't the entire Yao clan be swallowed alive and destroyed? Tang Guosheng was silent for a long time before he couldn't help but sigh deeply. "That's right." Tang Guoshou also nodded and said, "There are only a few people who offer timely help, but there are countless people who add fuel to the fire. The Yao family has sown the evil karma, and they will eventually have to eat it themselves. I promised Yao Qingzuan that our Tang family will never act against the Yao family's descendants again," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "But if we don't act, others will have nothing to do with our Tang family. There's a saying that when the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. Our Tang family will just sit and wait to divide the Yao family's wealth." Chapter 561. Time slipped away, and several days passed by in a hurry. In the end, the news of the death of the Yao clan's patriarch, Yao Qingzuan, was made known to the whole city. However, for the sake of the Yao family's reputation, they didn't announce to the public whether Yao Qingzuan was killed or committed suicide. Instead, they explained that he died of illness. In the end, the high-ranking leaders of the country chose to remain silent. However, they vaguely hoped that the Tang family wouldn't make any more excessive moves. Tan Xiu didn't leave the imperial capital, but everyone from the Everlasting Feast Hall had left. On Wangfujing Street, Tan Xiu smoked a cigarette and looked at the shops on both sides, imagining the scene of Yao Qingzuan's funeral held by the Yao family today. He didn't go, but Grandpa Xing did. "Brother, that kid Chu Yi wants to drink with us. Do you want to go?" Tang Wei had always been following Tan Xiu like a dogskin plaster that couldn't be driven away. In Tang Wei's words, learning from Tan Xiu would broaden his horizons. He even said that he wanted to find a way to get into Shanghai University and study with Tan Xiu. If it weren't for Tan Xiu's prohibition, he would probably have gone to Shanghai University to mess around. "No, I ring through." Before Tan Xiu could finish his words, his phone rang and interrupted him. "I'm not in the mood to drink." After Tan Xiu finished his sentence, he took out his phone to answer the call. "Kong Xia, what's up?" "Boss, there are two things. One is very good, and the other is not bad. Which one do you want to hear?" Kong Xia's laughter came from the phone. Tan Xiu said, "Let's listen to the very good one first." Kong Xia said with a smile, "The good news is that I can feel the airflow inside my body. It's warm and comfortable, and I can now control the airflow inside my body." Tan Xiu's eyes lit up and he said with satisfaction, "Not bad, not bad. This is indeed great news. You work hard and try to catch up with Andy." "No problem. Now I'll tell you the second thing," Kong Xia said with a smile. "Our health products are all in stock, and we're just waiting for the official sales to start tomorrow. By the way, My flight is at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so I can arrive in Shanghai before 5 o'clock. Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment before he suddenly realized that it was already the end of the month. It was also the time for the magnificent Tang Corporation's health products to hit the market. After hesitating for a moment, he said, "I'm still in the imperial capital, dealing with some important matters. How about this? I'll rush back to Demonic City soon, but I'm afraid I'll be a little later than you. After you get there, go straight to Blue Star Villa Complex and wait for me." "Alright." Kong Xia smiled. After hanging up the phone, Tan Xiu looked at Tang Wei and said, "I have something to do in Shanghai, so I have to return to Shanghai. I've almost dealt with the matters here in the imperial capital, so I won't come to the imperial capital for the time being if there's nothing particularly important. Our Tang family hasn't publicized that information. Don't you want to see the results in the imperial capital?" Tang Wei hesitated. Tan Xiu said, "I can already foresee the result. Moreover, I don't understand politics, nor do I care about it. With Grandpa and the other elders in the family holding the fort, I think they can handle it well. However, there's something I haven't talked to you about, and I think it's time to talk about it now." "What is it about me?" asked Tang Wei curiously. "The number of people in our Tang family is nearly twice that of the Yao family," said Tan Xiu. "And the number of people in our family who are involved in politics is even fewer. Once Grandpa and the others completely delegate power and first uncle takes over the Tang family, they're bound to train their successors from our generation. I think you should take this path for yourself, and also for our Tang family to have more power in the country in the future." Tang Wei was silent for a moment before he forced a smile and said, "But I really don't like politics." "It's fine if you don't like it. Just slowly cultivate your interest," Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. "Our Tang family has already defeated the Yao family, so our family's power in China will be much bigger in the future. With the arrangement from the elders in the family, I'm sure you'll be able to go smoothly and become a new star in the political circle in the future, becoming a big shot in the political circle. You won't be able to experience the wonderful taste of power if you haven't obtained it, but you'll understand the benefits of power when you're in control. Give me some time to think about it," Tang Wei said helplessly. "No problem," Tan Xiu said with a smile. In the afternoon, Tan Xiu returned to the Tang family's old man and rushed to the airport in a hurry. There was still more than an hour before the flight would take off, so he casually found a place and sat down to wait quietly. "Hello, are you Mr. Tang, Tan Xiu?" Just as Tan Xiu was idly chatting and reading a book, a middle-aged man in a suit who looked like a leader came to Tan Xiu with 4 or 5 airport staff behind him. "I'm Tan Xiu and you are?" Tan Xiu was surprised. "I'm an airport staff, Mr. Tang," said the middle-aged man quickly. "We received a call from Mr. Tang Wei and know that you're going to take our flight to Shanghai. Also, I've already taken the initiative to help you upgrade your seat to the first-class cabin. If you're willing, how about waiting in the VIP lounge with me?" "What's going on?" Tan Xiu blinked and finally accepted the other party's good intention. In the VIP lounge, it was a very comfortable environment with leather sofas on the seats. Since the middle-aged man had specially taken care of him, the airport staff even sent tea to Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu called Tang Wei and found out that the son of the Shanghai airport's person in charge was Tang Wei's childhood friend and had a very close relationship with him. He had asked his childhood friend to instruct him to make all these arrangements. "Hurry up. You'll be fine inside." Along with a hurried voice, 2 figures rushed into the VIP lounge from the outside. "Huh!" Tan Xiu looked up. What he didn't expect was that one of the 2 people who rushed in turned out to be an acquaintance. Zhang Xinya. At this moment, Zhang Xinya was still in a state of shock. She quickly walked to the corner and sat down on the sofa. Then, she patted her chest and said to her agent, "That was really scary. Those fans outside were a bit crazy, but I didn't expect that the airport staff would also be so enthusiastic. I'll never go out again if I don't disguise myself." "Xinya, you're now a well-known superstar," said her agent with a smile. "Especially with the recent song, Sleeping Beauty. It's simply explosive. You've been occupying the top spot on the major music charts, And your value is 4 to 5 times higher than the second place. The number of fans who like you is constantly increasing. You'll only get more and more popular in the future, even if you go abroad. It doesn't matter if I'm popular, but I'm afraid it won't be convenient for me to do anything in the future. Zhang Xinya forced a smile and said, sometimes, I really want to put down my celebrity identity to do something I want to do and see some people I want to see. Aren't the things you want to do and the people you want to see all on Mr. Tang's side? You rushed to Shanghai this time when the magnificent Tang Corporation released a new product. Wasn't it because you wanted to see if he would go to Shanghai's exclusive store? Don't talk nonsense. Zhang Xinya quickly grabbed her agent's arm and pulled her to sit next to her. Tang Xiu, who was sitting on the sofa not far from them, could clearly hear their conversation. The content of their conversation made Tang Xiu stare blankly. Zhang Xinya wants to see me? Can't she just call me directly if she wants to see me? Why does she want to go to the magnificent Tang Corporation's exclusive store for health products? How could Tang Xiu know the reserved thoughts of women? After hesitating for a while, he felt that he should greet Zhang Xinya. After all, she also seemed to be going to Shanghai, and it was very likely that she would take the same flight as him. Hey, beauty, would you like to have a cup of coffee? Tang Xiu walked toward Zhang Xinya. Zhang Xinya, who was talking to her agent with her head lowered, suddenly heard a man's invitation. She raised her head and directly refused, I'm sorry, I don't. However, she couldn't continue speaking because the man standing in front of her was the man she wished to drink coffee with every day. How come it's you, Tang Xiu? Zhang Xinya abruptly stood up and called out with an excited face. I'm going back to Shanghai, so I came here, said Tang Xiu with a smile. How about you? How come you're in the imperial capital? The excitement on Zhang Xinya's face didn't diminish as she said, I came to the imperial capital to participate in a talk show that just ended today. I'm also going to Shanghai. That's right, your flight is at 4 p.m., right? That's right. Tang Xiu said with a smile. Then we're on the same flight, said Zhang Xinya with a pleasantly surprised expression. Tang Xiu smiled and pulled her. After the two of them sat down, he said, Xinya, I didn't expect that we're so fated to meet each other twice at the airport. That's right, your new song seems to be very popular recently. Whether it's in Shanghai, the imperial capital, or even Jingmen Island, you can see advertisements with your picture everywhere. Even if it's very popular, it can't be compared with you, said Zhang Xinya with a laugh. You're now a superstar. Tang Xiu waved his hand and said, Don't joke with me. My fame is declining day by day. I'm very satisfied with this result. Zhang Xinya was perfectly aware of Tang Xiu's low-key character, so she said with a smile, How about we go out for a walk? I guarantee that your popularity will rise again tomorrow. Forget it. Tang Xiu quickly waved his hand and said, Don't drag me into this. I'll just stay quiet and be a handsome man. Ha ha ha. After the accidental encounter, Tang Xiu and Zhang Xinya took a plane to Shanghai. Tang Xiu hitched a ride and only separated from Zhang Xinya when he arrived at the downtown area. Originally, Zhang Xinya wanted to invite Tang Xiu to dinner, but he refused since Kang Xia was still waiting for him in Blue Star Villa Complex. However, he promised to have dinner with her tomorrow night. After returning to Blue Star Villa Complex, Tang Xiu saw Kang Xia, who had obviously put on some light makeup. She was still so beautiful and looked more mature than before. Her whole body exuded a flirtatious charm. Despite being accustomed to seeing beauties, Tang Xiu's appetite was still somewhat aroused. Chapter 562. Tang Xiu was not the kind of young man who would jump into battle the moment he saw a beautiful woman. Even though Kang Xia's body and heart had been conquered by him, his willpower was still very strong. After suppressing the heat in his heart, Tang Xiu gently hugged her and said, You've worked hard, but it made Kang Xia's heart feel warm. Long Zhenglin also came, but he didn't come with me. After leaving Tang Xiu's embrace, Kang Xia said with a satisfied smile on her beautiful face. Tang Xiu thought for a moment and then said with a smile, He has shares in the sales of health products, so he's naturally very concerned about it. That fella has always wanted to prove himself to his father with his own ability. If our health products sell well, he can hold his head up high at home. How can he hold his head up high? Kong Xia said with a smile. He just hugged your thigh, otherwise, how could he have achieved such results? Tan Xiu pulled her to the sofa and sat down. He then shook his head and said, You can't say that. Long Zhenglin may not have become a great person all these years, but his brain is still very useful. If it wasn't for him coming up with the idea of using the prescription to make the products, I'm afraid I wouldn't have realized the wealth contained in the health products. Sometimes, even an idea can bring huge wealth. Kong Xia nodded with a smile and said, What you said makes sense. However, the variety of products our magnificent Tang Corporation has is still too few. How about you use your brain to develop more products for our company? Tan Xiu hesitated for a moment and slowly said, I do have a chance to make money now, and it's definitely a huge profit. However, this product cannot be used on ordinary people. The target group must be the top tycoons in the country or abroad. However, this product cannot be used on ordinary people. It must be targeted at the top tycoons in the country or abroad. Kong Xia's complexion slightly changed as she hurriedly asked, What product? I'm going to refine a batch of medicinal pills that can increase the lifespan of ordinary people. However, the number of such pills is bound to be limited, and the time it can increase the lifespan of the elderly won't be too long. Kong Xia suddenly jumped up from the sofa and asked with a horrified expression, Boss, can you really refine medicinal pills that can increase the lifespan of the elderly? How long is not too long? Tan Xiu said, Yes, about 2 years. Kong Xia took a deep breath and said with a serious expression, How should we look at the timing? Should we give it to them directly? Or when he was dying? Tan Xiu smiled faintly and said, I'm on my deathbed. In addition, there is another benefit. If they have a few more years to live, we can take care of their corpses. At the very least, we can make them feel the state they were in 10 years ago, and after taking the pill, they will be in that state again. A look of ecstasy appeared on Kong Xia's face as she excitedly asked, What about the quantity? How many of these pills can you get? Tan Xiu pondered for a moment before he slowly stretched out his hand and said, 100 pills a year. No problem. Kong Xia asked again, What about the price? How much do you plan to sell one for? Tan Xiu said, I've thought about this problem. No matter how much money we have, we'll lose everything. Therefore, it should not be a problem to set the price at 100 million each. Kong Xia clapped her hands and said, 200 million. That's the lowest price. I dare say that if the effect of the pill is really as good as you said, let alone 200 million, I'm afraid there will be people willing to buy it for 1 billion. Moreover, they will take the banknotes and desperately run to snatch it. Tan Xiu thought about it for a moment before he nodded and smilingly said, 200 million it is. This kind of thing is a limited product. If it really sells well, we can directly put it in a large auction. At this moment, Kong Xia looked at Tan Xiu with eyes as if they could drip water. Not only did she fall deeply in love with Tan Xiu, but she also worshipped him to the point that it was difficult to increase. If it was before, she would think that no young man was better than Tan Xiu. But now, she felt that no one in the world was as good as Tan Xiu. I'm not hungry now. Kong Xia suddenly sat on Tan Xiu's lap and hugged Tan Xiu's neck. Her sensual red lips moved close to his ear and whispered. Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment before he immediately understood Kong Xia's meaning. The impulse that he had just suppressed rose again, and it was even stronger than before. Then, let's go and relax first. Tan Xiu picked up Kong Xia and rushed toward the stairs. In just a few breaths, he appeared in the bedroom with Kong Xia and fell on the big bed. On the first floor, the housekeeper, Zhang Xinlan, came out of the kitchen wearing an apron. She was about to call Tan Xiu and Kong Xia to eat when she suddenly found that there was no one in the living room. She immediately asked with a confused expression, Where are they? I just heard them talking in the living room. How come they're gone in the blink of an eye? Zhang Xinlan wandered around the living room. After confirming that Tan Xiu and Kong Xia were gone, she shook her head with a distressed expression and secretly sighed. I'm only in my 40s, could it be that I'm already senile? It's obvious that they were in the living room not long ago. How come there's no one here? She hesitated for a moment before she tiptoed toward the second floor. When she came to the door of Tan Xiu's bedroom, she heard the bone-chilling moaning coming from inside. A bit of embarrassment immediately appeared on her face as she quietly retreated to the back. 2 hours later, after Tan Xiu took a bath and changed into clean clothes, he appeared on the first floor. Zhang Xinlan looked at Tan Xiu with a strange expression and said with a smile, "Mr. Tang, the food is already cold. I didn't heat it up since I didn't know when you would eat. How about I help you heat it up now?" "Then I'll have to trouble you," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "It's all right. It's what I should do." Zhang Xinlan quickly waved her hand and said with a smile. Quickly, Tan Xiu came to the bedroom on the second floor with the food. He looked at Kang Xia, who was lazily leaning on the bed like a kitten with a smile on the corner of her mouth. He walked over with a smile and said, "Are you going to eat on the bed? Or do you want to come down and eat?" "You feed me," said Kang Xia with a charming smile. Cough, cough. Tan Xiu had never fed a woman before. But looking at Kang Xia in her pajamas, with her exposed chest and incomparably attractive and charming appearance, he finally complied. The next morning, Tan Xiu woke up from his sleep and found that Kang Xia's figure was no longer at the bedside. Such a situation made him a bit vigilant. After all, Kang Xia would make a sound when she got out of bed, yet he couldn't detect it with his current strength. This showed that his vigilance was getting worse. After washing up, Tan Xiu then knew that Kang Xia was cooking breakfast on the first floor. Although the breakfast was very simple, the two of them still had a good time eating it. After eating, they handed over the task of cleaning up the dishes to the housekeeper and then rushed to the health products store together. YDL country. Somewhere on the outskirts of Rome was a majestic manor. It was the headquarters of the Tsubwa clan. At present, the entire Tsubwa clan was immersed in grief, and the armed guards of the clan had become extremely strict. In the deepest part of the manor, inside the tens of meters high castle, Druffet was wearing pajamas and comfortably sitting on a chair in the living room. Beside the tea table in front of him, two fair-skinned and beautiful girls wearing white gauze were kneeling there, making tea and cutting cigars. Druffet could be said to be riding on the crest of success. After a crazy bloodbath in just 3 days, he finally took full control of the clan. All the high-level members of the Tsubwa clan and all the armed leaders had surrendered to him. In other words, he was now a billionaire who could shake the YDL country with just a stomp of his foot. Patriarch, the national parliament spender has come to visit. A stalwart man came in from outside the door and whispered in Druffet's ear. Druffet's expression moved. Spender, as a powerful figure in the national parliament, had a very high right to speak in the country. He also had a huge force behind him to support him. Even if he was compared to the Tsubwa clan, he would not be inferior. "I'll personally greet him." A few minutes later, Druffet saw Spender. He was tall and thin, looking slightly old. However, his eyes that were full of wisdom were particularly bright. "Mr. Spender, it's an honor to have you as a guest in our Tsubwa clan. Originally, I should have visited you personally." Spender was very satisfied with Druffet's attitude. In fact, the two had a very secret cooperation a long time ago and had earned a lot of money together. Now that Druffet had become the patriarch of the Tsubwa clan and had control of the entire Tsubwa clan, Spender was very happy to have a closer relationship with Druffet and get along more harmoniously. Faintly smiling, Spender said, "Patriarch Druffet is too polite. The purpose of my visit this time is to celebrate you becoming the patriarch of the Tsubwa clan, and also to give you a big gift." Druffet stared blankly and quickly asked, "Mr. Spender, how about we talk in my study room?" "All right." After the two men came to the more than 200 square meters study room, Druffet personally poured 2 glasses of red wine and handed one to Spender. After that, he smilingly said, "May I know what kind of big gift you're talking about?" Gently sipping the red wine, Spender put down the glass in his hand and said, "I'll be your guide. You pay me $100 million to let you join the Stygian Club smoothly." "The Stygian Club?" Druffet's brows furrowed and his face turned unsightly. Spender said that he would give him a big gift, but it turned out that he came to ask for money. "What's Stygian Club?" With his current status, why would he need someone to guide him? As though seeing through Druffet's mind, Spender lightly smiled and said, "You're now the patriarch of the Tsuba clan, so you must have a more long-term vision. Can you tell me who are the 10 most powerful forces in the world right now?" Druffet stared blankly and frowned. "The world? I can't tell you." Spender lightly smiled and said, "Since you can't tell me, I can tell you that the top 3 among the 10 largest forces in the world are the most terrifying. The last 7 are much lower in grade compared to the first 3. I'll tell you about the first 3 first. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.